Welcome everybody to the stream. We're having a stream here. We're talking to people. There's good stuff going on. Welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about you? Forget about it. We got Andre here, the boss guy. I mean,
yeah, the same guy who doesn't do any other accents than his own. And yeah, I'm good. Thanks for asking.
You might be wondering why the Godfather's here. We'll get into that. We'll definitely get into that. I got an offer y'all can't refuse, though, from Paramount Plus.
Welcome, everybody, to the show. Sorry for that. Andre's like, stop it.
You read my mind.
Pretty good, man. That was pretty good.
It did. Welcome, everybody. We also have joining us, besides Andre, of course, Script Doctored. Welcome, sir.
Good morning. Good to be here.
And joining us from the Salty Nerd Podcast, as this has kind of become the Salty Nerd Week, because we had Matt on Monday, and today we have Alex and MattVader. How you doing?
We're here. It's
Not
morning.
to be confused with the other Matt.
Yeah, the other Matt. Yeah, that's kind of funny. That's how I referred to him when we first met years back. Other Matt.
Yeah, because I remember the first few streams I had with you guys, it was always Matt and the other Matt. Then after a while, it's just MattVader, just so we know which one's which.
Yeah. I just had to pick a name.
But Alex, I can't remember. Have you been on this stream before? I don't think you have. All right, I plan on a couple with you, but not the other way around. So welcome to Midnight's Edge.
Thank
Matt
you,
and Matt have been here before, but yes, thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's great, man. This is my first big live stream on YouTube. I'm used to having like 7 or 8 people on the chat. This is pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, so far we have more than 300 watching, and I hope we'll get more as we go along here. So everyone, help us out. Smash that like and help share the stream.
Yes, please do. And I see so many of the regulars joining us already. Your Muslim uncle. We've got 6 in the house swinging that wrench around. We got Sander here, Xenomorph, Duck Nation. Welcome everybody to the chat this morning. Will Bloom's here. Olaf Van Ness. Natasha's here with a wrench as well. Thank you for being here this morning. We appreciate it. Rob Altus, I see here. So many of you lovely folks coming in. Hit that like button. Hit that share so people know that we're live. In fact, that reminds me, I don't even think I did.
I haven't done it either.
I should probably do that myself. It's kind of like that moment, like everybody was like, oh, crap, I got to use the bathroom, but we already left. Well, maybe we should stop somewhere. Yeah, we better go. Anyway, that was dumb. But no, we got some super chats to get into, and we have some news, not a ton of news. It's kind of a slow news day for the most part.
Certainly within the world of entertainment.
Yeah.
Some active news, emphasis on news. Day after that, but beyond that, but that's a little bit beyond our purview.
Well,
So
I mean, there's plenty of cancel
entertainment,
culture
there's not
going
so much.
on, but yeah, unfortunately, it's not, or fortunately for us, I guess, however you want to look at it, one way or the other, it's not something that we really get into here too often, especially when it's that political or medically charged. Let's say, is that the best way to put it?
It's a good policy.
Yeah, that's considering that we're on a platform where free speech is in something of a short supply. And we try to keep the discussion centered on the cultural thing rather than the political and medicinal sphere.
Yeah.
However tempting it may be to venture there.
But obviously, everybody's trying to cancel Rogan off of Spotify. And frankly, I think it's hilarious. Some of the people coming out of the woodwork trying to think they're relevant.
You can't cancel Rogan. It's
Especially
impossible.
going up against somebody like Rogan. He's a huge.
Well, yeah.
It
It
It would be fun if they did to see what's going to happen with Spotify's share price after that. Like, whoa, they're going to have Neil Young back again. That's going to save them.
That's just it. Some very important stars who actually have some kind of sway in the industry would actually have to say anything, and I don't see enough of them. I mean, and what the fuck's Elvira gonna do? Like, does she have a show on Spotify or something like that? I don't understand why she has a horse in this race at all.
Yeah, I think she just wanted to see if she can make herself somewhat relevant, and even
Which is
get a
sad
little
because she
boost.
did kind of have a bit of a comeback, and she just threw that away.
Yeah, I've been a fan of hers for decades, and I'm kind of annoyed with her right now. So yeah.
Well, it's even worse because she's not doing it under a profile that's like Cassandra Peterson.
No,
She's doing it under her Elvira profile. So she's doing it as the the character.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is just like the dumbest thing you could ever do. Because I mean, it could be one thing at least if she was out there doing it as Cassandra Peterson, we could separate. Most people don't even realize who she is.
Right.
But at the same time, of course, then she wouldn't get the attention.
Well, I find it interesting that they're trying to remove him for 2 episodes in particular that he's had experts on, and I've listened to them both, and he spends the first 15 minutes talking about their credentials and why they are allowed to say the things that they're going to say in the next 2-hour podcast. And I'm like, if you have a problem with that, why would you not take it up with them?
Right. Well,
like, it's Joe Rogan's just a platform.
Here's like the issue. They're desperate for people not to listen to what was said in those podcasts, because if people do, then that's extremely detrimental to, the narrative making the rounds. So the best way to prevent anyone is trying to discredit it, because if more people were to actually listen to what was said there,
there is that aspect, but there's another part to it too I'm seeing, and that is I think that they need a new boogeyman. And I've been hearing people say that basically since the Orange Man's out of office, they're trying to make him the new boogeyman. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that's a big part of it, because they don't have a target, and they kind of need one at the moment. And to make an example of.
These are people that you don't want to support. You want to only support them by virtue of them being the opposition to something else. If they're not the opposition, if they are to be assessed on their own merits, that's not going to work out too well.
They tried to cancel Dave Chappelle. That didn't work.
Yeah.
So now they're going after Joe, and it's just...
And everybody who dies, they always go after, too. It's just getting ridiculous.
Yeah, it never works. You think they'd figure it out, that there's more of us than there is of them.
Yeah, problem is that it does work. That's the issue. It does work. They actually do. They're able to get some pretty good influence that way. And I'm sure that they do actually have Spotify's attention. And I would not be surprised if Spotify suddenly start disappearing certain episodes from their back catalog. And stuff like that.
Well, wasn't that already an issue to begin with Spotify? Was when he first moved over there?
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, they had. I think it was one of the episodes with Alex Jones. It was still available on YouTube, but Spotify didn't transfer it over to their library.
Right,
and people were up in arms about that.
Yeah, I think
Joe responded to it on Instagram. I think he made a video explaining the situation, but I think it might have been just a cop out, just to kind of appease people.
I think there was something like 40 episodes or something that they didn't transfer over total.
I was gonna say, I thought it was a few of them, but
yeah.
But I don't think that he's going to be cancelled. But speaking of cancellation, the Book of Boba Fett had its final episode.
I was gonna say, before we get to that, I was just gonna say something about Whoopi Goldberg's.
No, we have one more episode.
Well, let's see how much I pay attention. How
it's okay.
the victory lap that Star Wars is taking these days.
I was going to say, before we moved on, we got to acknowledge the whole 2 weeks that Whoopi Goldberg got suspended for. I'm not one for cancel culture, but it's kind of funny when it happens on one side. It's fire, cancel. But if it's somebody who's technically in the same political sphere, let's say, well, then it's a quiet 2-week suspension over shit that's worse than anything. Let's say Gina Carano said, for instance.
True.
The double standard in the industry.
There's no standards like double standards.
Yeah, it's front and center this week with the situation.
The beauty is that it's quite visible to everyone, though.
I didn't know about Whoopi Goldberg until I think yesterday. I saw somebody did a breakdown of the situation on Instagram or something like that, and I was like, "Wow, that is an incredibly bad take." And I didn't know that she had apologized. And now hearing from the first time that you guys say that she got a 2-week suspension and that's it. That's incredible.
She did apologize, I guess, but yeah, she still got a 2-week suspension.
I find it interesting that this time the apology is something that many took. It's fine. Now we can move on. As opposed to she apologized. That's the admission of guilt, which is what it usually is.
It's like, I'm sorry.
It's because it's Whoopi.
Yep.
I guess. I don't know, man. It's so strange to me that I'm not a fan or a supporter of cancel culture, so I'm not saying
me either. So that's why it's kind
of burn it to the ground. I don't really need that to happen, but it's still incredible to see the double standard on full display right now. It's that's insane. 2 weeks.
And not even trying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with that, we have a couple of super chats to go through here.
But I figured I
before
was
we
going to use
start
Gina to
getting
jump
into
into the
topics.
Book of Boba Fett stuff. But hey,
Yeah,
Planner Aspect's going to do that for us just as well.
That's right.
If you want to read this, Andre, if you want me to take it.
yeah, certainly. Planar Aspect says for $5, this is Mando season 2.5, and I'm 100% okay with that. Boba's in this for 45 seconds. Did get stuff on film before did get stuff on film people have long desired though. So yeah, there's that. So what did you guys think of the most recent Boba Fett episode? Those on the panel have seen it so far. Because I'm getting, what I'm getting at least, is that more people are happy that this continues in the same vein of last week when the series. We're not going to get too spoilerish here, but I think that we can say that Boba Fett suddenly took a hard turn for, well, not necessarily the left, but in an other unexpected direction and became a Mandalorian series.
Yeah, I think the series is playing out exactly like something that Dave Filoni makes. You know, if you look back at the Clone Wars series that he did, you know, you have your 4-episode arcs, and that's what the first 4 or 5 episodes of Book of Boba Fett was. I forget what one we're on now. And then that was a canned thing that should have been like its own movie. And now we're moving into Mandalorian stuff, and they're going to just kind of merge it all together. I mean, I guess if you like that kind of stuff, it's fine. If you don't, it's weird. You know, it feels like we're watching a cartoon with people in it, with real people. That's how I look at this series. So
yeah, it's got Dave Filoni's fingerprints all over it.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I do think it's very strange that they completely derailed Boba's whole show to instead have Mandalorian be the front and center for 2 full episodes. It's very strange. I like these 2 episodes. Episodes 5 and 6 were the best so far of this season, it's funny because they're not even Boba Fett centric. So it's a weird position to be in as far as a Boba Fett show goes. Like, I was expecting badass Boba Fett, you know, doing some cold-hearted stuff, and we really haven't gotten that quite yet. So I'm kind of.
I mean, I'm curious how Tamir Morrison has got to feel considering now. No, look, full disclosure, I've not seen the last two episodes. Okay, wait, is there 3 episodes? 3 episodes now I've not seen. But out of the last 3 episodes, it sounds like he hasn't really been in 2 of them.
he hasn't.
Yeah, no. Episode 5, he wasn't in it at all, and episode 6, he was in, like that chat said about.
This would be like the Andy Griffith show if Andy like dipped out in after the first 3 episodes. Like what?
I think he literally was in it today to nod his head at Fanning Shan, right?
Yeah,
he did one of those.
Yeah, I do feel bad for Tamora Morrison because I like him and I like him as Boba, and I'm like, I feel like they're doing him dirty a little bit. Like they're not giving him any screen time. Like, he had a couple episodes and some flashbacks, and now we're back to Mando.
Today's episode was all about just dropping all the cool characters everybody wants to see in the series and go, look, guys, here's where we're going. Look who's back. Look who we see now from the cartoons. It's like, I don't know how spoiler we want to get, so I'm not naming any names, but it's interesting.
Let's be nice and not spoil any of the cameos. But I mean, we can kind of dance around stuff.
Yeah, sure. It's just wild.
Some legacy Clone Wars characters show up, which has gotten everybody talking.
I mean, I've seen enough people spoil it on Twitter, and even though I've not been a fan of the series, I feel bad for people who hadn't got a chance to see it yet. Because I mean, it's on in the middle of fucking night. I mean, not everybody's gonna be able to stay up all night to watch it. And I get it. The show has fans, and full disclosure, until Andre tells me I have to watch it, part of the reason I've ignored the show is so I don't really have to engage in it too much because I just haven't enjoyed it, and I'd rather just not discuss it than talk shit about it.
I hear you. I mean, it has its cool parts. I'm not gonna lie. There's stuff in this that I like, and there's a lot of stuff in here that that are head scratchers for me. So
that's the thing. It's not as bad as something like Discovery to where it deserves to have a finger wagged. Sorry, go ahead, Matt. My bad.
No, I didn't have anything to say.
I thought you had more to say.
No, it's just a head scratcher. It's like I said, there's cool stuff in this show, and they cover things that we all as fans have wanted to see for years, and then they do weird, goofy things as well. It's just, I don't know
Yeah.
how they come up with this stuff sometimes. So
Corsair Raven says, hello all. Greetings from Texas. Well, hello to Texas. The lovely
Yeah.
state of Texas. I loved Book of Boba Fett episode 6. Though I think he means here, sorry. Though it has me worried we might not get an erasing of the sequel trilogy after all. Andre, do you want to address this one quick before we ask Script what he's thought of the recent episodes if you had a chance to see them?
Well, here's like the thing, because I don't know what's going to happen with the erasing of trilogy, but I will reiterate what we have been told consistently, that there's not going to be, or probably not going to be, like a huge big bang where they say, oh, now the sequel trilogy is now gone forever and we're going to remake it. That scenario is not playing out. But what I have heard happen, or at least was the plan at one point here, was that they were going to just carry on exploring this immediate post Return of the Jedi era at the same time, but while doing it, gradually build up more and more inconsistencies with how things would play out in the sequel trilogy, to the point where they logically can't take place, and then simply carry on from there in a different direction, not with a sequel trilogy or not with a new trilogy of films, but with more series and stuff like that, eventually taking that place in canon, so you will, so that like the Mandoverse, if you will, then just goes and it charts out a new timeline, if you will, that which would enable you to disregard the sequel trilogy. That is kind of like what we have heard, and what's actually going to happen, I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. What I think, though, is that if that is what they're going with, they're going to go with things. Remember, Kathleen Kennedy's still in the building.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to do like any overt measures at erasing her work as long as she's in the building, I think. But they can do like subtle things. Introduce a character here and another character there, set up this plot point, and then suddenly you kill one of them.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds fun.
That can happen.
But
It
no,
does.
I don't.
It does happen.
I don't see it happening. I think to go off of what Andre's saying, I see them dancing around stuff and sticking more to this era, but I don't think they'll actually acknowledge an actual erasure of any kind. And I know somebody else who's not a big fan of this whole thing is Script Doctor, but I'm curious to hear what your thoughts have been about the series if you've gotten a chance to catch up with it lately.
Yeah,
well.
I managed to see the most recent episode this morning. There's some parts that are Western themed that I really enjoyed, and then the rest of it was very hollow. And I'm like, oh, did Dave Filoni write this? And lo and behold, yeah, he did, with Jon Favreau. And I can see what Favreau did and what Filoni did. And I think Filoni is just as bad for Star Wars as probably even Rian Johnson to this point, because he's very selfish. I have seen episodes of the Clone Wars, which I thought were poor and silly. And I mean, you can call it a cartoon, but I'm like thinking, I've seen cartoons that have some really impeccable writing, far more than they should, and this does not meet that standard at all. I'm actually really happy that a lot of people are liking some of the visuals and some of the cameos coming in. That's great. It's showing, engagement, and I think fans saying like, yeah, want to see more of these characters is a good thing to voice to the studio, because they'll at least provide us with that. But yeah, I mean, it's not a great show. It's got great concept, which unfortunately is just not, the execution is not rising to the level of the concept in itself. So yeah, and I also kind of agree to a certain degree with Andre with regards to I don't see Disney ever going to abandon their sequel trilogy. They invested too much in it. They're not going to do anything to circumvent potential future costs for an audience maybe 10 or 15 years down the road that might like this. The best you could ever hope for is a reboot, and that won't happen till like the end of our lifetimes. At this point, Disney's not going to do anything to compromise that yet. I would say, let's see, what was the turnaround time between cartoon Beauty and the Beast and the live action Beauty and the Beast? Like 20 years?
It's roughly, yeah.
Yeah, so your best bet is to hope for 20 years before, if Disney still owns the property of Star Wars, before they even consider doing some sort of reboot.
I think
with
it was
regards
more
to
like
those three.
18. or
Yeah,
something
and
like
again,
that, but yeah.
remember, like what we have said in our coverage, we have spoken about the possibility of like removing them from canon, but that's one thing. Actually rebooting and replacing them with another sequel trilogy, we've never said that's happening. We have never said
Yeah.
that ever.
No, that's where I say that I think they're just going to start ignoring certain things. Or like you said, Andre, I think that's a good way of putting it. Putting in little conflicting things that could get through that most people would probably overlook, but anybody with a keen enough sense to be paying attention would go, but wait a minute, that does goes against this, and that doesn't line up with that. And so you might get a few of those things after a while, but enough to make somebody who actually pays attention question it. But like you said, I think they're
I haven't
never
seen
actually
anything
gonna.
like that yet. In the
No,
two
but
series
there's
yet.
a few things here and there, like with the Darksaber, I guess already. But outside of that,
no, the Darksaber's from the Clone Wars.
I know, but there's rules that they've already fucked up between the Clone Wars and in this show, from what people have said.
I'm sorry, I misinterpreted. I thought you meant
That's
clips
what I'm
that
saying.
would basically
So, like, I mean, there's already
circumvent
been
the sequel
inconsistencies.
trilogy,
And
because the
that's what I'm saying
Darksaber I
is-
didn't see playing into the sequel trilogy.
No. But that's what I'm saying is I see them doing stuff like that
Okay.
to not necessarily circumvent it, but like to add enough there, like there's enough there to where it's like, yeah, it doesn't quite line up, but they can just continue doing whatever they want, and they'll just never speak of it again. Just like stay away from
Yeah.
it, or most of the characters that had anything to do with it.
Basically, they're just going to ghost it and everything that has to do with it. That's what we have been told.
But actually,
is
Keurig
that
has
the-
a point here. I wanted to get Scripps take on here real quick. It's like they're scared to get into deep story without hurting some other show or movie. Is this a problem you see, Script Doctor, especially from the writer point of view? And I could get where he's coming from with this, because this is kind of where I think I was kind of having issues with the show, because it's like it feels like it's going nowhere. But the next thing I know, I haven't seen the last few shows, but it's like it feels like they're doing nothing but setting up season 2 of Mandalorian, or season 3 of Mandalorian, and kind of like how we got with the last few episodes of Mandalorian season 2 was setting up this and other shit that we haven't seen yet. Do you think that that's going to start weighing on the series, of them trying to worry too much about setting up other things or hurting other things all the time? A lot like how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had to kind of navigate through the world of the MCU, I imagine.
Well, I think what they're doing here is a trope that I've seen in the industry myself, and I've brought it up many times, is where instead of focusing on the thing that they're making, they're focusing on the thing they're also going to make at the same time. And when you divide your focus like that, the thing you're making at the time suffers. And I think that's what we have in a case here. I think whatever is coming down from Disney and to Lucasfilm saying we got to get this content out and we got to do these things and hit these story points, they're focused on hitting so many of those story points that they spend so much time setting them up at the expense of these characters and what they're trying to do, that I think by the time they even reach that crescendo moment of, oh, this is how it all ties together, they might end up having lost the potential audience they had along the way, because they're kind of kicking the can down the road until they can, get to that point.
Yeah. And I know that's not exactly the same, but what do you guys think? Do you think that's kind of part of the problem of this show, and maybe some of these shows in general, is they're under the weight of trying to build too much of a universe with this, or?
It's hard to. I don't know, man. It depends on what they have planned. I mean, they had how many different shows that Disney?
Well, we know they've got Andor's coming eventually. We got Obi-Wan coming, but those are not as connected with this. But things that are Ahsoka, the Rangers of the Republic. I think there's one other one I can't think of offhand, but yeah.
I mean, I think there's enough happening in these shows. It's just not happening quick enough, and it's not laser focused. Like they always go off on these little tangents or these like Mandalorian did that, especially in season 1 and 2. Is like you'd have this story that you were itching to hear about, like, oh, let's learn more about this Grogu thing, and then Mando would go off on a freaking side quest and do some weird stuff and that nobody cared about. So like they just kind of are at a snail's pace with this show, and that's really bad. In Boba Fett is like we got a bunch of episodes with Boba Fett, but it's all flashbacks, and it's like catching us up to where we already are. And then after we finally get caught up, and we're like, oh, cool, now we can get into the Boba Fett story. Then they take another break and they go do Mandalorian for 2 episodes. It's like it's frustrating to watch. I'm like, I want to know what the hell's going on with Boba Fett on Tatooine. Like,
Yeah, I totally agree. And when you take a look at what we're seeing now in the current part of the story and what we had to see the first 4 episodes of catching up, you realize the whole catching up part has no value in what's happening currently in the story. So you just wasted the audience's time, and they're literally, you're putting the character in a journey where when we see him for the first time and then we see him after those 4 episodes, he's the exact same position he was at the start, and the audience has now got the exact same knowledge they had of where this character is at that point as they did at the start. So what was the point in the flashback? And that's not paying off as of yet. And I hope it does in the last. They have 1 episode to do it to make that flashback pay off. And if they don't, that's a great example of terrible writing of exposition only without substance.
Yeah, but the problem here so far, though, is that now you are kind of like hoping that the whole series retroactively is going to make sense in the final episode. But what you have here so far is really 2 series. You have a setup for a Boba Fett series, but it was really drawn out and it subverted expectations because everyone expected Boba Fett to be a badass, to go and clean up and assert his dominance. That didn't happen. Instead, he asserted what kind of a wuss he was, in ways that honestly reminds me a little bit of the Wolverine movie from 2009, like X-Men Origins Wolverine, which was not a badass movie. The only thing he does there before he gets the adamantium is basically go around spending 100 years telling his brother Sabretooth to calm down. It's enough. And to just chill. That's basically all he's doing. It's like the same thing here. I mean, this guy, he's not Boba Fett. He's like a peacemaker. No one's going to respect him. Yeah. And it's even out of character with how he was introduced in the final episode of The Mandalorian, or when he was in The Mandalorian. And that's the other thing. Then suddenly we got the Mandalorian continuation, and that's all right and all. But we still didn't get the badass Boba Fett series that we were kind of promised. And how is the final episode going to be able to fix all that? I mean, that's a tall order if I ever saw one.
Well, on that note, House of Atreides, and I know I'm jumping a bit ahead in the chats here, but I'm going to grab some of these that have more to do with this before we move on. It says, Hail Midnight Side's great success for Mando Season 3, Episode 2. Also, Book of Fennec Shand is going well. Book of Boba Fett is a complete failure. Fett had no dialogue. Well, I guess Tamir Morrison got his way.
Well, Fett doesn't need dialogue, but what's kind of ironic is we've heard some reports and rumors that The Mandalorian was a show set out about bounty hunting, but never actually followed through with that execution of bounty hunting. But when they got to Boba Fett, they're like, well, we can't do bounty hunting because Mandalorian does it, which is actually not true. So instead, they make him a crime lord. And I'm thinking, no, you could have made a Boba Fett bounty hunting show. And nobody would have batted an eye because it would be so different from Mandalorian, because Mandalorian was kind of trying to be like Lone Wolf and Cub without understanding what the point of Lone Wolf and Cub was. I think it's very comical from my perspective as a writer.
I can completely, like, if you look at what could be Boba Fett, a week-to-week, like, classic sci-fi, it used to be.
New planets, new bounties, yeah.
Every week is a new bounty. Every week is a new bad guy. And then you have like a subtext of an overarching storyline for the whole season. I want to watch the crap out of that and have Tamora Morrison. I love the dude, and I think he's badass. I love him as Boba Fett. Like, if we got that little sneak peek of him in Mando Season 2 where he took out that whole platoon of freaking stormtroopers, like, give me that every week, man. I'm in.
I have no problem with them turning Boba Fett into a crime lord. It just seems like it's very strange how they've gone about it. It's been very, very slow. It's a slow build, and just
it's a slow build. How diplomatic and peaceful he has been about it.
Right. I think part of the problem, I think maybe in my head, if they had maybe just retitled this show into Star Wars Underworld Adventures or something like that.
Yeah, some more.
So you just call it the Sands of Tatooine.
Yeah, there you go. Something like that.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. Yeah. No.
It's like, why is there no Boba Fett in the Boba Fett show? At least then we would have been able to say, that's like, well, it's not just a Boba Fett show. It's a gangster show about Tatooine and the Pikes and everything. So
the underworld and all that.
Yeah, for sure.
Like Floral from Under a Rock here, though, has a point. It says Boba Fett finally has no lines in his show. This is what everyone wanted. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Well, yes and no. It's not so much that nobody said they didn't want him to have any lines. It was more like either show us everything about Boba Fett or keep him mysterious. And instead, they've done this middling ground thing. And then, of course, in the last 2 episodes, it hasn't even been about him.
Yeah, what he meant to say was, if you're gonna give him lines, which is fine, then don't give him lines that make him out to be a wuss. And that's exactly what they did.
That's kind of what I'm
speak
saying.
very deliberately, like short, poignant sentences.
Yeah, like he's no good to me dead, and you know things
Exactly.
like that.
He's worth a lot to me.
Yeah, if you're gonna have him talk, leave the helmet on and have him make very distinct and pointed dialogue towards people.
Yeah.
One thing about this show that kind of threw me off, it was a couple episodes ago, is when he finally took the throne of Jabba the Hutt, and he's having his tributes come in and like offer gifts and stuff, and he's like looking at Finnick, asking her questions about how crime lords do things, and I'm like, shouldn't he already know that? Like, why is he asking this chick, hey,
He's worked for enough of them.
or am I supposed to pay them? Like, how's this all work? Like, he's a fish out of water. I'm like, that's not how Boba should be, man. He should be the freaking boss. He should know how everything goes. He should have probably worked for everybody that comes in there and been like, you know me, I know you. This is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
It just seemed very strange to me.
No, I think that's that's an apt point. It's like he should understand enough of this world where he's like, I know exactly where I can start from. And then as things get more complex, that's when he can start, that's where you have the drama, when things get more complex and it doesn't fit what he thought things were, because even though he's like an independent contractor who worked for all these guys, he's still to a degree on the outside, but he's not so oblivious to it as what we've kind of been seeing so far.
Yeah. Sean Carter says if the last episode is like these last 2, I think the big shift between 3 and 4 might document when KK might have been defanged. Thoughts, Andre? I was curious what you thought about that.
I don't know that we're suddenly going to see that in an episode.
No, I think we're seeing a more of
You know what I think that we're seeing here? I don't think that we see anything having to do with KK directly. What I think we're seeing here is that Jon Favreau had some really ambitious ideas, but he had a million other things to do. He had to retool and like basically do Boba Fett on the fly. He had to do it or redo it without one of the major load-bearing pillars that was Gina Carano. He rushed out essentially first drafts for a series. He thought it was good, but he was preoccupied. He didn't have the same attention to detail that he usually had. He had like this attitude, we need to get this stuff just out there and done with, without giving it that extra look over towards the end to make sure that this actually makes sense and he thinks it's going to work. I think it's a matter of Jon Favreau having had his mind elsewhere and produced this while running on automatic, and this is the result. That's what I think happened.
I also have to piggyback off that. I think that they had multiple episodes shooting at the same time at different Stagecraft studios.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because it feels like there's just hasn't been a guiding hand in this series, and that's probably due to the fact that Favreau was probably spent maybe a week or 2 weeks working on the one with Bryce Dallas Howard, and then someone else was directing the other episodes, and then Favreau had to be bouncing between all of those productions. And yeah, when you have to jump around like that, where essentially it feels like you're making 4 different shows when it's really one show because you have different directors doing their own units, that can cause some issues with the quality.
And also what I think is that he didn't hire Robert Rodriguez to put his own stamp on it. Now, considering it after the fact, after having seen a little bit of it, I don't think that it was ever a case of you got this. I think it was more a case of you're in our circle of friends and we need someone that can just make it happen. I already wrote this. I know what I want. Don't change it. Have them say all the same lines and stuff like that. But I need someone who is accustomed to shooting quickly and on a budget to make sure this actually gets filmed.
Like, I'm not even convinced now that they had a plan to do a Boba Fett show before that episode that Robert Rodriguez directed. Like I'm starting to think that the catalyst for that was two things. Favreau probably knew that he was going to lose Gina, and that was not a fight he was willing to get into. And two, going off of the idea that how well Rodriguez handled that episode off of a 15-page treatment or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. I think he saw that as an opportunity, like you just said, Andre, as this guy can do this on the fly quick. He probably literally threw like a couple pages of ideas at them, and they did write the scripts eventually. But I mean, I really feel like that's about how much thought went into this, and this was probably more so for a way for them to transition,
buy themselves time, because they have to change
set up Mando
everything
too.
afterwards.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to get to. Yes.
So it's like let's tell the people some stories we made up about what happened with Boba Fett between the movie and the show, and just throw in some cameos of cool characters from the comic books and go out from there, right? So that's
the cartoon show. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
When I
and
first
we'll all go, woo! Look at there's the badass Wookiee bounty hunter. Yeah, I get it for sure.
When I first heard Robert Rodriguez was doing Star Wars, man, I was expecting like El Mariachi and freaking Desperado.
Planet Terror.
That's what you would have gotten if he had given free reign.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't, because Jon Favreau, he had already written a first draft when probably needed like 2 more drafts before it was going to be good, with the ink still wet on it, and then basically told Rodriguez that this is the instruction: film this, but do it fast and do it on the budget. And here's like the thing with Robert
with
Rodriguez,
limited cast on top of it.
Yeah, exactly. But he is someone that if you say just here's the title, go, he's going to do something amazing. He's going to give you an El Mariachi or something like that. But also he's a shooter director. Meaning that if someone says, okay, I need you to do me a solid, just film this, make it happen fast and on the budget, he can do that. Because like he can film something that looks like an A-level production in his backyard over the weekend.
Yeah, he can. He's very, very talented cinematographer and director.
Brilliant with that shit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And here's like the thing. I believe that that this is something that came together in record time. I'm not even sure that they had any scripts 1 year ago or less than a year ago, when you had like this when the series was first teased and announced in the season 2 finale of The Mandalorian. I honestly don't think they even had scripts then. I think everything was being assembled together in record time.
They would have just
agree with that
anyway.
What was that, Matt?
They would have just rewritten them 5 times anyway, and then started over from scratch.
No, that's what they should have done.
Yes.
But there was no time. I mean, these are all first drafts. I really think these are all first drafts we're seeing.
I'm the type of person where, like, I don't. You can overwrite yourself into a problem. Star Trek Discovery, or as long as you have at least a few visions that kind of know where they're going, you can rework those scripts all day long with the same people, and that's not a bad thing, right? It's just you're constantly looking at it from different perspectives, and as long as the same people have the same vision overall going into it, then you can preserve that, right? At least I think that's the way most of these things should go. Like, I don't know about you, Script, but I agree. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but like once you get like 20 writers on a subject, that's where it feels like the entire thing becomes this convoluted, to quote Andre, Frankensteinian mess.
Well, yeah, there's always that risk of too many cooks in the kitchen, but what we have here in at least with the Mandalorian and Boba Fett is a very tight writer's room, but I don't think the writer's room that they have is exactly on the same page. I think there's a lot of negotiation going on, because we have Carrie Beck, who's part of the Star Wars story group. She's in there. And then you've got Jon Favreau. You have Dave Filoni. All 3 of them, I think, have their own desire and goals for Star Wars, and I don't think they really overlap much at all. And we're kind of seeing this because, again, it's a very disjointed type of show. And I wholeheartedly believe that, yes, after Rodriguez said, like, let's do a Boba Fett thing, and then they shot that little brief part there to do as the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian. And then when all that malarkey happened in there, like within 3 months after that premiere, it's like, well, there goes our production schedule for Mandalorian season 3. All that time we spent, during what did it be 2020 writing season 3 and getting ready for negotiations for it is all thrown out the window. Now what do we got? It's like, well, let's see what season 3 episodes can we hybrid and turn into, you know, another show. And since we got Rodriguez on board and we know he can shoot stuff fast, let's just start working out some quick backstory on Boba Fett and what he's doing, and see if we can get that into production to at least hit our release schedule window, which they did, because they knew that with the Marvel Disney Plus shows, they don't want Marvel and Star Wars overlapping. So they decided to do a little bit of reorganizing there, so that as soon as Hawkeye finished, Book of Boba Fett starts, or the next Star Wars thing starts. And I think that's what we're seeing as a result. We're seeing a lot of panic and pragmatic production. And yeah, some parts are really cool. I don't begrudge any of that. Like, there's some things I saw in today's episode which were quite awesome. And in other episodes that I really thought were quite impressive. And then there's a lot of stuff that makes me scratch my head going, why did they do that? And I think that has to do with the fact that, yeah, it's probably basically them in panic mode, which is something that I'm very familiar with, because I'm usually called when the production's in panic mode, especially if I'm within driving distance. And you just have to make it work so you can make your day. And I think they realize we have to make this work so we can make our production release window. And you know, depending on how they shoot this at Stagecraft, because I'm familiar with the technology, I'm not 100% familiar with how they go about the actual shooting process and how many hours a day they spend and what practical stuff they put in and what digital practical stuff they don't need. So yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out on my end. But this all feels like a very much of a panic execution show, and I'm kind of impressed. Like, I mean, I would expect a panic thing to be a lot worse than this is, but. No, I'm actually kind of surprised that it's not as terrible as other panic things tend to go.
Well, I think it could have been worse. And then going back to that chat we had from before, I think that the line where we saw where KK got back involved was, you know, right after this show ended is where her attention shifted. And that's when, lo and behold, we had the controversy with Gina Carano. And I think that's pretty much the moment we know when she kind of put her eyeballs back on Star Wars. Now, again, I'm not saying she has anything to do with Boba Fett directly as far as how it's turning out, but I feel like her decisions that were made behind the scenes have forced the hand of, you know, Favreau, especially in how this show has turned out. But again, I wished it would have been better. But Tim Scorpion's not wrong here either in this super chat. The sequels are a brick wall for Star Wars. And even though I haven't watched these episodes yet, just going off of some of the stuff you guys are saying in the chat and you're listening to you guys here talk, it clearly is, regardless of how, you know, we've heard things going forward and what we just talked about a few minutes ago. I don't think there is really any getting around the fact that this all leads to one place.
Yep.
Yeah.
A dark place.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of that they might be able to dodge that bullet is Filoni put that freaking plot convenience of a time travel gimmick in.
And apparently, there's more of them. Is what I have certainly heard that there are not. That's one, but there are others. But of course, so the trap is there. But will they be able to spring that trap? That's a different matter.
Yeah, well, and Mr. Evil brings this up, and this actually goes off of Mando season 2. Ben Solo in canon was referred to as Luke's first apprentice. Now Grogu is Luke's first apprentice. They've already made changes.
Yeah, see that? That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Hold on.
You have a slight discrepancy.
I can't respond to that without going into heavy spoilers for that episode. But
yeah, we can't spoil that. But I'll just say this way: we don't know yet.
It's like Solo rolls, everybody.
Yeah. But what I would say is that
I mean, and technically in the old canon, Leia was an apprentice of Luke before Ben, so even that is considered wrong.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how it works out.
But again, I do want to kind of reiterate, let's try to avoid spoilers no matter what, guys. I mean, there are some people who just haven't had a chance to see the show yet. So we'd appreciate that if you could.
I just want to say I'm really impressed with Mr. Evil's $6.66 super chat.
Oh, of course. I'm always impressed when they're able to do it.
That is amazing.
I should have. You're right. I should have paid note to that. I apologize, but yes, Mr. Evil, very clever there with the $6.
Every super chat from here on out that Matt does is going to be that exact amount of money.
Well, when you get to 69, then call me. No,
there you go.
Keep using ambitious numbers like that. But well, hopefully that's a sign of things to come. But I think that script has a point too. So, but let's see. We did have a couple other ones about Boba before we move on here. Brandon, the anime guy, says Mandalorian season 3 episode 2 chapter 18, great episode, but it's not Boba Fett. Plus, the damn Vespa Rangers are still there. Blah.
Yeah,
they're not going anywhere.
No.
Those things were so goofy.
Power Rangers, super fun.
Yeah,
Kind of, yeah.
that's another thing about this show that feels off a little bit. Is like you look at these things and it just doesn't feel like classic original trilogy Star Wars to me. Like I would never see those characters in the original trilogy ever.
You know, that's probably my biggest issue with this show so far is like, at least with Mando, granted, one way or the other, how you feel about the writing, the story, how it's set up and everything like that. The one thing most of us couldn't really argue about is that there was definitely some stuff in it that felt like old school Star Wars.
Yeah.
I have not seen the last 3 episodes, but to this point with those first 3, there was nothing, and I mean nothing in there that made me feel like old school Star Wars. Even the Easter eggs felt labored, right? Like the Tashi Station bit, when they brought in the huts, all that kind of stuff. It's just like, it kind of feels like you're trying to do something Star Wars, but it just feels like it's missing something.
It's like when the huts came in, being carried around by their slaves and stuff. That was like one of the few times watching this show that I felt it actually felt kind of like Star Wars. There was people in the streets there. I mean, this show, what it misses for me is it misses that kind of grimy, kind of used, populated look. There's nobody in this show. Every scene has like 3 or 4 people in it, and I know that's probably because of COVID restrictions and stuff. But it feels like there's something missing with every single one of these episodes. And even on today's episode, there's some scenes, but there's never more than like 2 people in it, and it's just
yeah,
it's
the
missing something.
The world feels empty for sure.
The world definitely feels empty, and that's a part of the problem that
It's
I
missing
do have
desire.
with this show. Yeah,
That's what I would say. It's missing kind of desire.
And they make such weird decisions and have weird cameos, like the guy in the last episode with the orange hair who makes people, gives them the add-ons.
Oh, the mod guy. Yeah.
The mod guy. Yeah,
you see that in a video game, not in real life.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, whose friend is of his? Who's his friend that's making these shows? Is he a good buddy of Dave Filoni's or something? It's just, it's strange, and it's just they've made such weird decisions, and it's just like the mechanic lady. I hate her. I hate her with every fiber of my being.
Amy Sedaris?
Yeah, it's such not a Star Wars character.
I call her annoying Ripley.
She's just she's Jar Jar Binks to me. And
she's playing the character like you would a toddler's cartoon show. Like that's how she's playing it. And I've seen Amy Sedaris do some really amazing stuff on stage, like literally 10 feet from my face. And she is brilliant. And yet I feel whoever direction she's getting here, it's like, no, because she could say those exact same lines seriously, and you'd actually probably love this character. But because she pretty much hams it up for
why I think she did that?
Audience, it's like,
because because there's someone running this thing that says, okay, in order to do everything of this on time, we have 1 take. So let's make it count, and then we have to reset for the next take, and we have to get this thing here done today, because we need to get that other thing done tomorrow, so go. I think that's
she could do it in 1 take. I just think she's given the direction of play this for the kiddies.
Yeah, but my point, I don't think it's her. I think it's rather...
I don't think it's her either.
I think it's the people behind this that are in such a rush that they have like the attitude of let's just get the bugger done with, without putting the kind of thought that needs to go into it. into it.
Hmm.
To mention Vader's point about it not feeling like a populated universe, that scene where Mando goes onto the public transport, he's in a giant ship going from one planet to another, and I think there's like 4 people on it.
You're just trying to piss me off now.
I am not. I'm just poking the bear, dude.
Like,
you want to talk about the weapons thing, dude? Let's talk about that.
World class bounty hunter is just going to get up all of his stuff and put it in a bag underneath the ship. No, this is never going to happen. No.
I saw somebody make a joke about how when he did that, he first used that excuse that he used in his previous season where like, I'm Mandalorian, weapons are my religion. And the robot's like, we do not accept religious exemptions.
Yeah.
It was just
the other part too is that should people really be wanting to commute or relocate to a planet like Tatooine? It's a very, very desolate type of world. It should be people should want to try and get off that. And if there is some sort of like constant transport from Tatooine to other planets, part of me is wondering like if this was a long-term thing, like something that's been established during the Empire, wouldn't Luke have like probably fell the way to like run away from home at one point, and then Owen would have to go grab him and bring him back?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, just look at our world. You have like people who work for international companies who are sent to work in the Middle East, right, and to the Emirates.
Oh
and
no! See,
Dubai today.
Yeah.
Dubai today is pretty awesome if you're like a Western worker or a Western work immigrant. Let's be honest, because that's what it is.
No, I agree with that, but we're missing.
But that's one thing.
It's a strange attractor of Tatooine that makes us understand that aspect. That's the one part too. Like Tatooine, we're being told it's this desolate. It's being overrun by these people running spice and everything, and yet it looks very copacetic of a place. Like it looks like everything's kind of well maintained to a degree, organized. Even the poor biker gang on the Vespas have clean clothes and shiny. Like there's just a conflict of what we're being told with what we're being shown. And I would have loved it. It was a moment where like the Rhodians in that one scene says, yeah, we're going to Tatooine because there's work there. It's one of the few planets in the galaxy since the Empire fell where I can get some work out here, and we don't get anything of that. And that'd be kind of interesting too, because then that might factor into the economic issues of Tatooine and what Boba Fett's trying to change by way of becoming the new head of the mob, so to speak. And there's all these potentials that are there that should be there that you could definitely reflect with how we have, people leaving the West to going to the East to work because there's more lucrative values there in certain countries, not all, of course. But we don't get any of that complexity or exploration here. It's all ambiguity.
Do you guys remember how difficult it was for Obi-Wan and Luke to get off of Tatooine? They had to like go hire a smuggler and like go to some like low-level bar and find somebody who can get transport off of Tatooine. Like Mando's just over here like, here, let me go just buy a bus ticket and get out of here.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Patali says, this is not Tamura's or the character Boba Fett's fault. It's the fault of the writers, and we need to tell Disney we do still want badass Boba. Oh, I think that's pretty clear, Patali.
Yeah.
But no, you're not wrong. I think that a lot of everybody has said over the past 6 weeks now that we've had the show, that's the thing is we want Boba Fett. I mean, even me as a person who doesn't have a Boba fetish, I'm not a fan. I still wanted something for the fans because, I'm sure Andre and Script can back me up on this. I said several times over, even though I'm not a fan, this is the kind of shit they should have been doing from the start. You have these beloved characters that have not necessarily been explored. Do that. Quit giving a shit like Casio keyboard that nobody gives a shit about. Like, give it like Obi-Wan makes sense, even though I'm not necessarily on board with everything they're planning to do yet. I'll wait and see. But those kind of things make sense to me because they're beloved characters. If you're going to do that, do that. Otherwise, do stuff like Mandalorian where it's something completely new and you're not treading on any ground that came before or after.
I still wanted a Lando Calrissian Black Star Warrior thing. That was awesome.
I agree. Yes. Like, yes. Like, totally.
I'm so nervous about the Obi-Wan series. I'm not going to lie. Man, if they screw this up, I'm going to be so angry.
They're going to. Dude. They already want Obi-Wan and Vader to fight, dude. Like that right there. Done.
Yeah, move on.
Yeah,
I think that's my main point of contention. Even though there could be some loopholes to it, I feel like it's going to be cheap loopholes, or however you want to put it, to
Yeah.
where it's just going to be more divisive than it is an actual fan uniting moment. Unfortunately,
I'd rather go see what happens
I
to
hope I'm
Ezra
wrong.
and Thrawn than risk the Obi-Wan show just destroying everything.
I'd actually go rather see what Ezra Miller's up to.
Yeah.
Yeah, from a distance, you mean? From a safe distance.
Yeah, out of choke reach.
Yeah, exactly.
And on that note, Gosker Verlot sends in a very generous $20. Thank you for that. It says, I feel so bad for Tamora Morrison. Like he even knows they messed up his character. Yeah, doesn't it feel like that with that interview?
Totally.
I did catch
And
a
you
little
know
bit.
what? It's funny because then he and Mark Hamill can go have a nice chat together and cry together because they both know how that feels. I mean, seeing him talk right now, I get flashbacks to Mark Hamill talking about Jake Skywalker.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, he was so not down with. I mean, he was so down for a series, but he was not so down for the execution of it. Catch my drift.
And I'm sorry I reminded you about Casio keyboard, Mike Cat. I do that from time to time. Yeah, the series that has been in reshoot hell for what, over a year now?
2.
Really?
2. Yeah, I was gonna say it's been a while.
Yeah, and you know what the problem with those reshoots are? By the time they're done with them, they're still going to have footage, and that's too much footage, because if there ever was a character that did not require any kind of further exploration, it was Casio Keyboard. You know, the only character in that whole movie that would be, or actually 2, that would be interesting for a second life, that's Robot, and it's Zatoichi, and no one else.
And of course, the robot's not even going to be in the Casio keyboard show, so there's
exactly.
no reason.
And then what the hell's the point? I mean, this is like the one thing that we were always saying was like, or at least I was always saying, like, okay, I don't care about the Casio keyboard, but I like the robot. So at least this way we'll get more of the robot.
The Alan Tudyk character, yeah.
Yeah, and then they go and they dash that hope. Then it's like, well, then what the hell are we watching this for? I mean, then we're like down to another Batman series without Batman.
Yeah.
I think we're almost on 3 of them by now, because isn't Pennyworth still going?
Maybe.
I
don't know
I don't
anyone
know
who's
who
watched
cares. Who watches it?
I don't know. I noticed they kept trying to get me to watch that when I was trying to find Peacemaker, which I cannot believe they make it so difficult to find Peacemaker on HBO Max, but yet the series is such a big hit for him. Goes to show how bad their fucking navigation is on that thing.
Peacemaker is so good. It's my favorite series. Right
I've
now.
only
Best
gotten to
series
see
I've
one
seen.
half episode so far.
I bring on season 2. I love Peacemaker. Yes, I know it stars John China, but that series is so good.
No, so far I'm enjoying it. It sucked when I had to break away from it yesterday, but I was like, oh shit, I'm running late. I can't watch anymore. Fuck. But like, yeah, I got to watch one half of an episode. But so far, you guys are on point. It seems like I'm enjoying the tone and the.
Yeah, and for those that think it's woke, no, it's not woke.
I can see where some people.
I see why
Yeah.
you would think that, but when you watch
we
it
review that
thematically-
show. We review that show on our podcast for our Wednesday episode, and the first 3 episodes were difficult for me to watch. They were so blatantly over the top, ridiculously freaking like.
But that's the point.
Check every single box Hollywood needs.
But that's
on
the
the
point
first
of
3
them.
episodes.
They're subverting it. They're highlighting the insanity of it.
I don't know.
We had this chat with Alex about how, it's woke, but it still kind of works. It's fine.
Kind of making fun of the woke, actually.
Right.
Yeah,
I was
I
gonna
think
say,
so.
I think it's kind of on
makes
that
fun of
line.
it.
Yeah.
It has been getting better. The last 2 episodes after this, the first 3 were like the ones that they put out all at once. Those were the ones I binged all 3 episodes at once, and I was like, oh my god, this is terrible. It's every freaking checkbox that they need. The bad guy is a freaking white supremacist, and the freaking super diverse group of assassins are gonna take him down. I was just like, okay, eye roll. The 4th episode and the 5th episode have gotten better. They have definitely gotten better. It goes more into that, like, we're making fun of both sides type humor. So I was just not a big fan of the first 3 episodes, man. It was so cringy and hard for me to watch.
But I think that they did go all over the top deliberately.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe so.
Marksman, are you sure it didn't say 7 million? Because that does not seem right. because the show it's like the biggest show right now on HBO Max.
Yeah.
Vader, didn't you guys cover that on your Saturday morning news chat? You guys were talking about how it was doing better than numbers than Boba Fett.
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah.
Yeah. That was on Matt's show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the one I don't
Actually,
watch.
I think we brought it up Monday when Matt was here too, because like it was in the it was one of the things that it did beat Boba Fett as far as they could tell with their analytics. Yeah.
But who knows about streaming analytics, right? I mean, they're all over the place. It's a goofy world.
We have ways of kind of extrapolating them, and Culture Casino actually is the guy who's really good at doing that. And basically, yeah, you have like Samba numbers where basically if you take those numbers and multiply them by 2 or times them by 2, I mean, that's kind of a rough idea of how many people watched it within that set period of whatever they're going by, right?
I'm having work flashbacks right now from the casino where we're trying to.
Well, and it kind of sucks because the numbers they give you is like they usually give you like watch time by minutes too when they do finally give you anything. So then we have to sit there and sit down and figure out kind of a rough guesstimate of how many households that is and all that shit.
Sometimes the marketing department at the casinos will ask us questions about what this guy's really worth for comps. So then you have to like take their time played divided by their average bet over their, their credit rating score and multiply it by how much they paid for dinner and all this kind of stuff. It's crazy and it's never right. So yeah, I get it. It's just numbers. So
no, but overall I would say, 7 million viewers sounds more in line.
Yeah.
And that would definitely be a much bigger hit than what Boba Fett has been to this point. I haven't seen any more recent numbers on Boba Fett.
That's more numbers than all of the CW superhero shows combined.
Even the 700,000 is more than a lot.
Better
of
than
CW
3 of the
shows.
CW shows combined. Yeah.
Maybe shows just have really low standards as far as what they consider to be successful these days, right?
Well, it kind of has come to that point,
especially
when you got. Because didn't they just have to reintroduce that 0.0 fucking thing for the smaller shows like on CW and stuff?
I don't know with all the account sharing and everything that goes on. I don't know how they keep everything.
I'm not much of a numbers guy. That's why we love Culture Casino because he's really good at breaking that stuff down. Valiant too in some ways, but I do not understand the looking at if you threw a thing of ratings in front of me, I'd be like, what the hell is this? I would have no idea how to listen or sit there and read it. But all right, let's see here. We got a few more on the Boba Fett thing before we move on. Infinite Wanderer says, I hate what Filoni did with 2 Mandalorians. He turned them from badass warrior bros who'd recruit anyone into forking Swedish. You want to get that one, Andre?
Yeah, sure. What he's saying is recruit anyone into the forking Swedish. Yeah, well, there's not much else I can say, is there?
Not really.
If we put anything in Swedish, there might be able to help out.
Yeah,
or Norwegian.
I love Sweden, man. They got a really cool metal scene in that country.
I don't want to break.
Are you sure you're not got it confused with Norway now?
Norway too.
Norway too. We got big fans of Norway, man.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to break the flow of conversation here, but we do have to let Alex go in a moment. But I do want to ask him before he goes because we all checked out the trailer for The Offer before the show. What was your reaction to that, my friend?
I am in. That looked like a really cool, freaking back Hollywood, old school days. The cast is phenomenal. I didn't even know this is. I watched the trailer with you for the first time, and I'm gonna go as soon as I end here. I'm probably gonna go watch it again, and I'm gonna go learn everything I can about this series and find out when it's gonna drop so I can watch it because it looks freaking awesome.
For those who don't know, The Offer is a 10-episode miniseries being put out by Paramount Plus, our buddies over at Paramount Plus. And it's about the making of the Godfather film. It's a dramatized version of the behind the scenes drama, let's say, for lack of a better term, that went into making that film. And in a quick minute 10 trailer that dropped yesterday, I think Paramount did a bunch of they had some special thing where they were showing off a bunch of their upcoming stuff to critics yesterday, and that happened to be one of the trailers that dropped. But it's something I've been looking forward to, and I know a few other people have, and I think it opens up a conversation of we need more series and movies like this. I want to see the making of these movies. Like, I'd love to see a Jaws miniseries about all the shit Spielberg had to deal with behind the scenes, or even Star Wars, what George Lucas went through. You know, that'd be really neat. Like that, I would love to do, because I love movies like RKO 281 and stuff like that about the making of other movies. Even that Hitchcock one was pretty good. I mean, I know they're not
two of them.
Yeah, I'm not even. Yeah, there's two of them actually. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're not always historically accurate, but they're great watches and they suck me in, and I love them. But yeah, Alex, we have to let you go. But I'm glad to hear you're looking forward to that, because I might get some people together to do a review.
I'm down, man. Thank you so much for having me on your channel. This is my first time here, and the chat's been fantastic. You got a ton of people in here. This is amazing. So thank you for the invite, and anytime I'm able to, I'd love to hop on, and if you want to talk about that show, I'm down. That sounds awesome. But yeah, I do have to head out. So thank you guys, everybody. Andre, Script Doctor, great meeting you guys for the first time. Appreciate chatting with you about Mando and Boba Fett and the sad state of Star Wars.
Yes.
And I do have to head out, but if I can, just we're crawling up on 5K subscribers on our YouTube channel, and that's our next big milestone that we're trying to hit. So if you guys like nerd content and like movie reviews, we do tons of content. We do a podcast 3 times a week about various different topics and all kinds of fun stuff. So if you can help us get to that 5K mark, that'd be fantastic. But thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate it. And goodbye to the chat. You guys have been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here, Alex. And check out the Salty Nerd podcast, of course. And if they get 10,000 subscribers, Matt,
tell them all about it, Matt.
Too.
I'm out of here.
Take care, Alex. Yeah, that was your outro.
Thank you, guys.
Sorry it had to do with his butt, but yes.
Alex doesn't approve of this. I kind of like just stuck my.
I've heard a lot of people aren't approving of it.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't get it. You know, we were on our Discord a couple of weeks ago, and I just was bored at work, and my fingers did the talking, and they said, "Hey, man, if we can get to 10,000 subs on the Salty Nerd channel by July 4th, I think I said, then I'll go get our logo tattooed on my butt, and we can do a live stream of it." But,
I would have never thought of saying anything like that to Andre either.
I know, right? It's just I hate work so much, and I'm trying to figure out ways to be able to like get paid to do this stuff. So that's the ultimate goal. So I'm just putting things out there that are, kind of weird. So yeah, but I'll do it if we can hit that benchmark by July 4th. We can make a thing out of it. It'll be fun.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I salute your
approve.
commitment. I salute your commitment. And Tom, no, I'm not going to ask you to tattoo the Midnight Sedge logo on your butt, even if we hit 1 million. So,
yeah. Probably just like the size of one of my buttons. It's no big deal.
Even though I know how big of a Beavis and Butthead fan we both are, and we both would get quite the. I got a tattoo on my butt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I would never get a tattoo on my butt.
Well, for starters, you'd never be able to see it unless you look in the mirror.
Well, the best thing is if I have to show it to you, then it's not a good thing.
That's right.
Or it could be, I guess, depending on who you are. But thank you for being a new member, Yanni Evinen.
I know I probably our good Finland Swede who. I certainly noticed in the chat on Monday. So yeah, welcome. I'm so glad to have you as a member.
Welcome aboard. So thank you for that. And speaking of, we have a few more. Before we get too much into the offer, I just want to get Alex's take before he had to take off there. But I know you guys had a few more things to say about Boba Fett, and we'll get to those real quick before we get into the offer proper. Joe Doyen says Cad Bane is back. Luke looks better. Well, that could be a case. Again, we're trying to avoid too many spoilers here. Thank you for that.
Ruined
Joe.
Everything. It's over. Yeah.
No, we appreciate the support though. Then Rob Lee said post Empire Tatooine Baldy. I think he's referring to to Tamara Morrison's look there. But yeah. Indeed. Let's see here. We also had a couple more on the Disney situation here. We got Just Nova, who says the Disney shows has some good episodes, but brings me down to the sequels. But glad to see new and old. Well, there's that aspect of it. And again, like that's where I don't want to shit all over any of the fan service that is being done on this show, because people are enjoying it. And I don't want to take that away from somebody, right? Like I don't want to make anybody feel like I feel like they're less of a person or they're stupid or anything like that for enjoying it. There
are some times when that's okay, but most of the time it isn't.
Well, in this case, I just don't feel like this. Like, and that's why I compared it to Discovery, or even Picard's probably a better comparison, right? Like, it's not like they're doing anything that's completely world damaging in this show, but its biggest, sin is that it's fucking boring, right? Like, to this point, asterisks, I haven't seen the last few episodes, which, most of you guys are saying are better, but still,
if you were to sum up the series in 2 words, you know what they so far they would be? Mostly harmless.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and I love
right.
the callback to Hitchhiker's Guide there, because yes, that is completely true. At this point, has been pretty much that. So I don't want to really shit on it too much either. So I hear where you're coming from, Just Nova. Let's see here. Did we have any more? We had one from Master Clockwork here, and one or two more, and then we'll move on to the other topics and get to the other super chats as we move along here. Master Clockwork says, "Look, far as I'm concerned, all of Disney Star Wars is an alternate timeline." Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. This shit is so far removed from the AU, and he means EU because he did send in another super chat to clarify, but I digress. The EU feels like a bad joke. That's Gundam. So there you go. Thank you, Master Clockwork, for that. And as far as this goes, yeah, I think a lot of people are happy to drive this stuff out of their headcanon however they can. I don't know about you guys.
I used to really think that I wanted to see things like what happened to Boba Fett after he got swallowed by the Sarlacc and stuff like that. And now, 30 years or whatever it is later, I'm not sure if I actually wanted to see it, because I've always been kind of satisfied with what was in my brain as far as what happened after that. So sometimes I don't know if getting what we wish for is ever really always a good thing.
Well, certainly not always. I would say though, like originally, the original version of see what happened to Boba Fett after he was swallowed, well, that was seeing him being digested and pooped out again, because that's what originally happened. I mean, that's the canon version. And you can say, what's the alternate timeline version of the Disney timeline version? Of course, that's a different story. I don't think that anyone are quite content with what they chose to happen here. That has suddenly got so incredibly mellow.
Right.
But not right away. He was incredibly mellow right away, and then he got badass for the episodes of The Mandalorian when that was needed, and then he mellowed down again. So, like, not too consistent, I guess.
And the other part too is, like, if you're going to tell a story about escaping from the Sarlacc, that's kind of a pivotal moment in his life. You don't, throw that away in like 2 or 3 minutes. Like, you have to have a challenge so that we understand why the Sarlacc is so deadly. How it doesn't matter that just Boba Fett could escape. Is like, why could no one else escape, and why could only Boba Fett be the one to escape? That's a decent story. Like, that's 25-40 minutes on its own if you want to have a real good one about that. And that's not something you should just casually discard or throw away for a character, especially if you want to tell a long form story with him as well, right? So the other part too is what's called the Stranger Attractor I brought up a little bit earlier. You just have the Boba Fett appear, and you have that question of, like, how did he get out? It's like, well, we'll start with the obvious answer. He's Boba Fett, feared, ruthless man throughout the galaxy. And then you just have a long story where he's doing other things, and maybe you get little clips and cues and things that slowly tell that story, not through flashback, but through action and behavior of how he was inventive enough to get away from the Sarlacc. And if you want to do that story, you've at least built up a better understanding of the character, since we'll be seeing more of him, so that we could actually really enjoy such an impactful event in his life.
Indeed. Film School Rookie sends in a very generous $19.99 and says, "Good morning, friends." Well, good morning to you, Film School Rookie. The last 2 episodes are the best. Wonder why? Yeah, well, I think we kind of been getting into that all morning here. But I think that's pretty obvious and goes without, well, it already has been said, I should say. I was going to say goes without saying, but we've already said it. Then we got Tanneroo, who sends in $4.99, says, "Jawa's rocking that crate dragon skull is one of the coolest visuals ever. How did those little shits get that thing up there?" Well, those are the kind of things I don't mind when they do, like, little fun stuff, but I mean, there's been so much of this
winch.
Yeah, that too, yeah. Well, there's enough of them. You can probably get enough done. Teamwork,
Yeah.
There's a lot of those little fuckers.
Bones are
built a little-
bones are porous, so they end up being a little lighter than you expect.
That's true. That is also very true. And then Infinite Wanderer chimes back in. I'm not kidding about the Mandos. Filoni turned them into pale, fair-haired pacifists with a violent past they're desperately trying to forget. Yeah, I mean, I've heard other people who are EU fans say the same kind of stuff. So I doubt you're alone in that feeling. And I've never been, I mean, I liked episodes and things of The Mandalorian, but I understand where some people are coming from, and that's where, dropping stuff here. And that's where I was kind of talking with Script earlier about how there's already discrepancies between things too. So it's really tough to really get into all that, because they're on this path that's like they've had everything stripped away from the EU, and now it seems like they're trying to pick and choose what they want. So I don't know if that's going to make any fans happy. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think Filoni's just as bad for Star Wars as some of the other people that are under Disney. Only Filoni got into Star Wars before Disney's acquisition, so he's kind of deep rooted in there. He has a very strong fan base because people grew up technically with the Clone Wars, and I mean, I don't begrudge the fans for that. They can like that stuff. It's definitely appropriate for what they like in Star Wars. It works for them, but I don't think Filoni understands the very property he works for. I don't think Jedi are considered to be docile and submissive to certain aspects of things. I think they're kind of active and controlled, and I think Lucas made a big mistake with Jedi by introducing the concept of meditation, because that's not a thing. It's a pseudoscience. It's essentially pretending to be asleep in order to calm yourself, as opposed to doing something that actually does calm yourself. So that's just my take on it. I think there's a lot of stuff that could have been explored, but we're not going to get that, and that's fine. But as long as we get some other cool stuff, some other exploration of characters that we're familiar with, would be nice, and some new characters that can make an impact and explore the galaxy in a way that's not on Tatooine or well, that's the most frequently planet we've seen. So yeah, let's just get off Tatooine for a while and see some new characters and new type of aspects of what this galaxy has, to make it actually a galaxy and not just a tiny system. Would be nice.
It's crazy to me how this is just really a continuation of Clone Wars and Rebels, but with live action. I always wondered if they were going to be able to pull something off like that. And that's what they're doing. It's interesting, but I don't know if they're pulling it off quite as well as I wanted them to. So I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think I'm on your side with that, Matt. Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, Gonzalo Bergali, what was this again, Andre? This was Uruguayan? Or what was this?
That's Uruguayan pesos.
I was right. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Gonzalo. He says, in a vast galaxy, they sure managed to make it feel like there are only 10 people in a galaxy. I know. Well, and again, I can forgive them to a point because of the restrictions, let's say. But this is also Star Wars. Like, the first thing I said when I saw that one bit where it's like a completely big empty room and there's nothing in it, it's like George Lucas, the first thing he would say is, well, we could put some more aliens in here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really easy to do. Cut and paste in a computer. Come on. They probably got a dozen of them on fucking file.
It's a very underpopulated show. You know, I'm used to seeing stuff in Star Wars like we all are. You know, I want to like decks on the Death Star where there's 1,000 stormtroopers lined up.
Right.
You know, where these guys, where they all come from. You know, the rebel base, like in what's the movie, the good movie that Disney put out?
Rogue One.
Rogue One, where they're on Yavin, the moon. You know, that's a really populated base that they're on. There's people running around all over the place. You know, it feels underpopulated to me, and I think that's one of my biggest complaints about any of these series that they've had out so far. I need to see people. It needs to be more organic. It needs
I mean, I understand the restrictions, but at that point, that's where, as a storyteller, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Script, where you kind of work with what you got, right? They should have made it a bit more concentrated story, perhaps, with less, where you're like in a more concentrated area, I guess is what I'm trying to say, to where you're.
Well, I'll put it this way: alien makeup alien makeup facilitates a lot of the protections needed with current day pandemic requirements. So
Well,
there
yeah.
really is no excuse. I mean, you usually just have the person in makeup is usually isolated anyways. I mean, that's standard procedure. One
That's
makeup
what I was
artist
saying
really
before,
to one
yeah.
person, and maybe a couple other hands in there for additional painting. But really, it's just one person, one makeup artist to one person with a lead makeup artist that has done all the designs and concepts. And then they all sit in their chair, they get their stuff done, they go out, they do their scenes or do their bit, and then they come back and then they get cleaned up. That can fit within those restrictions. And let's not forget, most of the people that you saw in, say, the pod race audience were Q-tips that were painted and like redesigned in a stand and then just digitally composited in. You can there's a lot of creative ways to get away to do some stuff, but I don't know why they're not doing it. I think probably because Disney has this mandate saying you have this much time in production to actually shoot something, this much time in post, and then it's dropping at this date, and there's no flexibility. And I think between the time they announce or greenlight something and the time they want it to be released, they want it now. And we saw that already with the Star Wars The Force Awakens. They only worked on it for 2 years, and traditionally Star Wars films take about 3 years to get complete. And they just rushed that trilogy as fast as they could to get it out because, again, they're losing money on this property. And now they're doing the same with Disney Plus. They need it out as quickly as possible to maintain their subscriber count and grow it. And the fact of the matter is, it's those three things. You have something good, fast, and cheap. Pick two of those three, and that's what you're going to get. And I think they're trying to do good and fast, fast and cheap, good and fast, but it's not really cheap. Or definitely fast is in there because I don't even think it's very good.
I know the analogy you're talking about. I think we get you, but yeah, no, I think you're right. Hyperguyver 2 says, I've been too busy trashing on Vox Machina Critical Role and pissing off the fake 5E D&D stands to be spoiled on Mando 2.5 Star Wars is dead. Accept it. Yeah, I hear you, Hyperguyver. I think a lot of people have moved away from the show. I think the fact that the show probably has around half of the audience that Mando did is kind of proof of that. And going off of what Script is saying, yeah, Disney has not had a breakout hit yet for Disney Plus. The closest being Mandalorian, and I'm not so sure that's anything they can really brag about overall, like number wise, especially compared to things like, and granted, Amazon and Netflix had wildly more numbers than they did to start with, but even HBO Max has had a few hits that have made some blips. Like even the Peacemaker is like a big deal considering how bad the Suicide Squad did. The fact that this character's show is doing so well, I think says a lot, when especially putting it up against arguably one of, if not the most beloved, or people love Boba Fett, right? Outside of maybe Darth Vader, there's the only other character I can think of that's probably more popular in Star Wars. Maybe Luke Skywalker, right? Like almost everybody loves Boba Fett. So put that up against the Peacemaker, and it's doing that bad. That's not saying that's just showing you how bad they've fucked this up.
Boba Fett's kind of boring, not gonna lie. Yeah. I'm more interested in this Vox Machina Critical Role stuff. We're actually we're going to be talking about that on our Saturday stream this week. And I watched the first three. I watched the first 3 episodes this week, and I came into the Vox Machina thing as a complete noob. I don't know anything about that, and I never really heard of Critical Role before this either. So I'm just kind of fascinated how their whole channel just blew up as I'm doing a little research on that whole thing. But I'm an old Dungeons and Dragons nerd from way back, but I never played 5th edition. I actually kind of retired after 2nd. So it's all very interesting to me how this stuff is being made. Vox Machina, it's just, it's more like we were talking about earlier. It's more stream fodder, right? It's more stuff that they're making for all these hundreds of networks that are coming out. So it's interesting to me. So yeah.
And then Vetris, how do you say that?
Vetris, I guess.
I think I said it right. Okay. Sorry if I didn't, but thank you for the $10 donation. Says, wouldn't he have gone through the same weapon restriction when going to the Halo planet? I'd be surprised if he randomly got dropped off after season 2 on the very planet that the rest of the sect was on.
Yeah, those are some interesting questions to raise.
Yeah, indeed. Because I'm not sure I can answer that for you.
because
I have issues with the Halo thing too as well, because I'm like, you see in one corner of it, it's like, oh, it's orbiting a star. So why is there shadow on the interior of it? Because there wouldn't be. We're missing some sort of obstacle that makes it have day and night. It's just, oh god.
That whole scene just angered me. It was like, you're not going to give up all your stuff. You're not going to give up all your weapons. You're a freaking bounty hunter, man. And I don't even think he would be actually taking public transportation.
No, I don't. I think he would charter a private flight. Yeah.
It just that's where that episode kind of lost me. It was just like, really, you're flying Allegiant Airlines to the backwater city on Tatooine. Okay, get out of here. Forget it. It's dumb.
And then Grand Wazoo sends in 10 euros. That's fancy money, folks. All that talk about Boba Fett, Mando, and all the Star Wars stuff is fine and good, but the most important thing is, what did Grace Randolph say about the Peacemaker show?
I have no idea, because she has me blocked, so I can't tell.
Yeah, I don't know if she has me blocked or not, but I did not see that yet this morning, so I'll have to take a look on that note. Let's talk real quick. Well, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was going to say, she probably said something about her sources, and she was probably wrong. So,
Well, whatever. He put schlong in there, so I'm wondering if she commented on Peacemaker's dick. She is kind of obsessed with penises, let's say. Which, fine. She's entitled, I guess.
There's lots of talk about this dick in the series. So
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, let's see
and
here.
How much he gets to use it on the ladies.
Okay.
We just reviewed Peacemaker yesterday while we were recording the podcast, Eastern Promises with Viggo Mortensen, and there's a lot of schlong in that movie. So yeah, if you're into Viggo Mortensen's schlong, watch that. It's pretty good stuff.
I'm trying to see here what she would have said about it. But she tweets a lot too. So
yeah, that's so inconsiderate. Makes it difficult to find.
She blocks everybody that disagrees with her.
Well, yeah, I'm surprised she hasn't blocked me, to be honest with you. Yeah, I'm not seeing it yet here. If somebody wants to just clue us in the chat, that'd be great. Because I'm not going to waste a bunch of time looking for it here on her Twitter. Sorry about that, Grand Wazoo, but I'm curious what she said overall. So if somebody knows real quick in the chat, let us know, and then we'll get to that. But now let's move on for a few minutes before we get back to the initial super chats of the day. Let's talk about real quick what everybody else thought about the offer, because I kind of gave my feelings already. I want to see more things like this. What about you, Matt? What did you think of the trailer?
Oh, I didn't even know this thing existed until you showed us the trailer right before we started today. And I'll be honest, it looks really cool. Who doesn't like The Godfather? And a show about the making of it, whether it's all true or maybe they've taken some liberties and stuff to make it interesting. I don't know. But I'm in. It looks really fun. So yeah, I'm gonna watch it 100%.
Yeah, same with me. Like I love those kind of stuff. I wish we had more movies about the making of movies. We have a couple of already. There's of course Hollywoodland, where Ben Affleck plays the original, or not the original, but the first regular TV Superman. There had been two serial Supermans before then, but this is then about that, and that was excellent. And also we have a couple of others in the world of Doctor Who. They made like a special that's detailing the creation of the Doctor Who show.
Yep.
An Adventure of Time and Space or something. Like
Adventure of Time and Space. I actually met the actor who played William Hartnell. He's a wonderful man.
Oh, nice, cool. Yeah, no, I thought that was amazing. Like I'm not hugely into Doctor Who, but I thought that was a great special. And also on that note, we have like the making of the original '60s Batman series with the misadventures of I forgot.
There was a TV movie of it too. Yeah, and I can't think of it.
Yeah, a TV movie of it and a miniseries, both based off of Burt Ward's book, which is highly debated. But it was a fun thing. Yeah,
it was really cool. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. That was really cool.
Absolutely, and script, I mean, as you said, these are highly dramatized, and sure, a lot of the things can be questioned, and they're always going to have to play with a few characters and play loose with certain time and events just to be able to fit it in a narrative. Those things are understandable.
Well, that's not usually what I'm talking about. It's usually
but you're talking more about. Go ahead.
If you want to see something awesome about Star Trek, Billy Blackburn's videos are great. You actually see a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff of the original Star Trek series.
Well, I was referring more to like The Offer, but yeah.
Oh, like with The Offer, yeah. There's gonna be a lot of fun with the Offer. I think. I definitely know there's gonna be a lot of people in town saying certain things in The Offer didn't happen that way, because that's always the case. But I think for people who love The Godfather and they're gonna see this show, I think they're gonna be really impressed with it.
No, I was kind of worried because I mean, I want to see things like this. Funnily enough, I'm surprised more people hadn't heard about it. Armie Hammer was originally supposed to play the Miles Teller role, I guess, and of course he had to drop out for obvious reasons.
Yeah, it's a good thing that they hadn't started filming when he showed his true self, let's say.
But I mean, come on, how inspired is Dan Fogler playing Francis Ford Coppola as casting?
Pretty good.
I thought that's a pretty good.
Yeah,
like he
pretty good.
looks just like him. What did you think, Andre? We haven't gotten overall kind of what you felt about it as far as.
Yeah, no, I love the idea, as I said already. And I just love this kind of stuff like this. It's awesome. So this looks good. I look forward to it, and I hope to get much more like it. And that's really all I have to say about it. Looks fantastic.
Right.
Color me excited.
All right. Well, I hope to get to talk about it when it comes out here soon. And as I said last night, God damn it, Paramount Plus! Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. So here we go, kids. Back to that. But again, we got new South Park coming too, so I ain't too worried about it.
That starts tonight, right?
I think so. Yeah, it's Groundhog Day. Holy shit, I forgot about that. Yeah. I got a movie to watch too. It's Groundhog Day. I try to watch Groundhog Day every Groundhog Day. But we have a few super chats we're going to grab here, and then we've got some patents and news that Andre brought to our attention from Mikey Sutton.
Yeah, we have some early reactions to the Batman.
But before we do that, Mags says, waiting for FF6, says, today's Mando episode was just okay. Some cool things, some blah things, but one scene in particular gave me nightmarish flashbacks. Remember, all roads lead to the sequels, even small details. Yes, we did kind of touch on that, Mags. I don't know if you were here earlier, but yeah, I understand your reservation.
I know where she's coming from exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But thank you again for that, Mags. We appreciate the support as always, and for being a wrench, of course. Let's get back into the first super chats of the day. What we had left here, Joe Pat sends in $1.99, says, Tom's a regular Maurice LaMarche. Well, thank you. I tried to do voices well. Steven, aka Deleted Scene, says, hail Midnight's Edge panel mods and chat on the road today. Well, hopefully you're still listening, Steven, and please drive safely.
Yes, please. We can't lose anyone.
Yes, indeed. Matthew W. says, Rogan gets more listens than the entire mainstream media does in any given day. He has more influence and is willing to listen, which is dangerous. This is true. We said that earlier on in the chat. I think he has like twice as many listeners as he even does subscribers, but it's crazy. But no, I don't know what they're trying to accomplish here, but you're going to need some big hitters to come out before anybody even over at Spotify flinches, I think. No.
And if they flinch, then their shareholders better be ready to fire that person afterwards, because they would be destroying Spotify.
Well, there's not like those kind of things have a lot left. You can get away without a lot of those. Like, the only reason people probably listen to Spotify is because of him at this point. That's the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah. Tim Scorpion says, question, do you think, and speaking of canceling, do you think people trying to cancel Miss Rowling are because she's self-successful woman who disproves the women are oppressed narrative and the transphobia is just a cover? Tim Scorpion, I don't think you're wrong. I'm not going to say for sure because it's a controversial subject, but I don't think you're wrong here. I think that there's something to this. What do you guys think?
Don't know.
Yeah, see, that's a tough thing. I hate to say the answer because it's such a shark-infested waters, let's say.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Well, the only thing I would say about it, I said I think that she, not only is she a woman and successful, because in being a woman, she is someone who, according to their ideology, is like on the victimhood specter, because all women are victims, even the hyper rich ones. But then she has these attitudes that she expresses, which they consider no woman should be able to say such attitudes, and therefore she must be like unpersoned. She can't be. It's all about cohesion and the message, right? Then you can't have like someone that should be all over it publicly doubt it. I think that's the biggest thing.
Indeed. And Pilgrim Media says, Matt, I super chatted to you at Vegas convention.
That's awesome. We appreciate that. That convention was that was something else. It was
on
fun.
That note, though, you have to leave us.
I do. I got to get going. I got some stuff I have to take care of before work today. But just really quick, let me get some plugs out there if I can. Is that cool?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Right, okay. So this Salty Nerd podcast, I know everybody knows that I'm on that show. I just want to let everybody know we release our edited shows every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, where we go and we record it in Matt's basement, and he and Alex edit those, and we have a lot of fun doing movie and television reviews and Patreon content for that stuff. But we also do live streams every Monday night. Alex has Salty Nerd Late Night. Every Thursday, Matt does a news thing, or he does his bad writing segment. I think he does that at 8:00 on Thursday evenings. And then every Saturday morning, we have a Salty Nerd Saturday morning, and we talk about stuff that we don't talk about on any of the other shows. Like this week, we're talking about Mandalorian more again, and we're going to be talking about Vox Machina, and who knows what else. So that's what we do. We have our live streams and our canned edited shows. So I hope everybody can check those out and help us grow the channel. Like I said, we're trying to get up to our media goal is 5,000, but we want 10 so I can go get a tattoo. I don't know if my wife's going to let me do it, but she probably do. But yeah, so that's what we're doing. We're trying to grow this thing and do it full time. So
on that note, Daniel
look up to you guys. So
says he loved your caveman movie selection and reviews. Haven't laughed that hard in far too long. Thanks. I don't know if you heard about this, Andre. They did a commentary to Quest for Fire.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, Matt was filling in all the.
One of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life, and I didn't know it was possible that Matt Kadish was actually funny for once, but he was. He broke a couple scenes of this movie down to where you'll probably piss your pants. You'll laugh so hard, and we've actually got that cut out and edited out there as a short. So, but yeah, check out the.
Told me about that. I'm like, that's one of your favorite movies. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
Quest for Fire is one of my all-time favorite movies, bar none.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, check that out. We sit around, we drink, we talk about movies, and we have a lot of fun every week. So that's it. That's what I got, guys. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I'm sorry I can't stay longer. I feel like we both kind of boned out on you guys.
Oh, that's all right. We're just glad to get you guys out here. And we wanted to try and get you all on at the same time, but of course, Matt and your schedule and everybody's schedule, but hey, we're just glad we had you guys on. It's been too long.
Maybe we'll get Jude on a live stream someday too.
Absolutely. So, yes. I want to have the whole crew on someday too. Yeah.
I want to say thanks and hello to everybody in the chat. And I'll see you guys later.
We got to ask her about the corks,
Oh yeah. The corks. The corky for sure. Yeah.
So yes, right. Tell Matt we said hello and the rest of the crew. And thank you for being here today, Matt.
All right. Thanks guys.
MattVader. Other Matt.
Other Matt. Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
Take care, Matt. All right. So let's get to this Batman news and then we'll get back to the super chats. How's that sound?
Sounds like a plan.
Yes, because Robert Pattinson's Batman has gotten its first reactions, according to Mikey Sutton. Says the film has gotten first online reaction. Critics will see the movie in a few weeks. In the meantime, it's a mystery. Some are confident director Matt Reeves will nail it. Others are a bit skeptical. So far, audiences are thrilled about Robert Pattinson's brutal presence. When his casting was announced, there was social media angst because of his Twilight films. A number of fans couldn't take it seriously. Although Robert Pattinson appeared in acclaimed movies since Twilight and Twilight's end, the masses didn't see them. That's very true, Mikey. That's what I keep saying. Instead, he became a critic's darling. The trailer calmed the storm. I don't know about that. It's quite obvious that Robert Pattinson's captured the Batman's grit and darkness. We'll see. But what about the Batman movie? Certainly, the footage is reminiscent of Christopher Nolan's streetwise approach. In other words, it strives for realism. While Zack Snyder had Batman fight Superman, Reeves has him fighting the Riddler in a trash bag costume. The media blitz draws comparisons to horror movies like Seven. Furthermore, they draw parallels to gangster classics such as The Godfather. Speaking of Awards Daily's Eric Weber tweeted a text from a friend who's seen the Batman. It corroborates those previous claims. However, some of the response is troubling. Well, it's open to interpretation. Your mileage may vary. Weber's source describes the Batman as complex. Artistically, that can be seen as positive, but to some people, that can be viewed as pretentious. For example, a number of folks who felt Eternals was complex. In fact, many reviewers didn't get it at all. What's truly concerning, though, is that the Batman is controversial. That generally means the film makes unpopular decisions. There are likely twists or changes in the Batman that will irk fans. Finally, people will discuss it endlessly. Yes, that can be taken as the movie will be polarizing. So far, it doesn't sound like the Batman is a smooth ride. For example, nobody would have described The Dark Knight as controversial. Audiences can decide for themselves in March. Will a Batman movie be compared to Silence of the Lambs in Chinatown? Will a Batman movie compared to Silence of the Lambs in Chinatown click with the public? Will Robert Pattinson hit a grand slam? Warner Brothers is hoping for $1 billion on this one. Well, I think that might be a far cry, but it is Batman, so I'm not saying it's impossible. What do you gentlemen think?
Well, before we let the script have his say, just to emphasize then, you will recall that test screenings of The Batman were about to begin. And this then are some reactions that come from Mikey Sutton sources, like the keywords, the initial reactions. And those are controversial and complex.
Oh, don't forget pretentious.
And pretentious. So controversial, complex, and pretentious. This does not sound like a crowd pleaser to me. I mean, as it was stated in the article, complex, that's one that was used about the Eternals. And you recall, like, we got like exact same thing. We had like a report of test screenings, and not test screenings, like this was like the very first industry screening for journalists. And then came like these buzzwords where they were trying to sell it as a positive thing. And then we had Chris Gore on, who came and said, no, I haven't seen it, but I know people who have, and they're not saying this is a good movie. And then we had like these buzzwords, and now we have them again. To me, I can't say I'm surprised, because this has always looked overtly pretentious to me. And now getting reports that that's exactly what it is, color me unsurprised.
Yeah, in my opinion, Batman is not the genre for a heady art film, so to speak. It's like what a pretentious film would dictate. It's supposed to be an intriguing mystery, an engaging mystery, one that has thrills and emotion. And even though they're trying to compare it to something like Seven, or as they mentioned up here, Silence of the Lambs, I don't think that's. I think that's what they're intending for the connection to be, but I don't think that's what the execution is going to be, because nothing in the advertisement has ever caused me to think Seven or Silence of the Lambs.
You know what, script, just to harken back to what we've discussed before. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that if Garth Ennis were to write a Batman script, that probably would harken back to Seven and the Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
We've all said that he maybe should stay far away from Batman. And here we have then a director who has done that. So now we have Silence of the Lambs and Seven comparisons, and I agree, those are not the kind of comparisons that I would want for a Batman movie. Now, there are some comic book movies that I absolutely would want to be compared with that. Batman ain't among them.
Exactly. I mean, the funny thing I find with especially other writers in my age group and that have grown up with the character of Batman is that they very much see him as like, you know, a dark character within a dark world, where he's not. He's actually a very hopeful character in a dark world, and he just kind of weaponizes the darkness to his own advantage, and is an inspiring character. And the other part too is that it's not a tragedy as a character. It's actually like a character who is overcoming tragedy and is finding something of themselves and finding something within the city he's protecting that's worth protecting. Like these are all paths to hope and to, you know, confidence, and to the fact that there's good in people that can be either exploited, weaponized, or dampened because nobody wants to stand up against, you know, that type of system. So I don't know what the heck is going on with the Batman. Like, again, this is kind of like a very mixed response to this film. It's based on what the genre is supposed to be. So, because we got like reports of it's mystery, it's got long Halloween aspects to it, it's got all these characters, it's got a very like competent cast, like one that I'm actually really interested in watching. But at the same time, we then hear, oh, there's a 4-hour cut, now there's a 3-hour cut, and you know, it's about dark, gritty, and realism. And one of the things that I think is the biggest misstep whenever you're doing something in regards to comic books or a borderlining on fantasy is trying to lean into realism, because realism is a byproduct of committing to your genre. What most modern day Hollywood and film directors, even on the independent side of things, think realism is trying to ape the real world into your fiction, and that's actually not the case. Realism is basically you're so good at executing and selling the ideas that you're presenting in your film that you as an audience member buys into it wholeheartedly, and that has to come back. That type of effort needs to come back, and that's not going to be the case if you're trying to conform Batman to work in our world, as opposed to picking things of our world that is interesting, that can support and build up and make believable a character like Batman.
Tom?
I really don't give a shit about Pattinson. It's Batman. To be clear, like, I hope it's a good movie for people who are looking forward to this, but I've already seen this movie. It was called Seven, and it was called Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises. I'm glad we're not getting an origin story all over again. Great, but you've got Catwoman in a discount outfit. You've got the least believable Batman ever, in my opinion, and there's nothing that I keep hearing or seeing out of the trailers that is selling me on this movie. You telling me it's going to be over 3 hours long? Like, oh, goody. Like, that is not a selling point for me, right? Like, I don't want to sit through 3 hours of a fucking movie. I don't think Batman is that important to like, you have to have a damn good story. Okay, like, no way. And I see some people bringing up like Michael Keaton. Okay, like, yeah, Michael Keaton's a fair comparison, don't get me wrong, but Michael Keaton also wasn't a sparkly fucking vampire.
Nope. The most effeminate he got was Mr. Mom.
Exactly.
And even then, that was hardly effeminate. Like, that's
because he was too manly. Like, that's the joke. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he does eventually like take on certain traits, but no, like, I understood what Michael Keaton was there for, and Tim Burton, because I saw interviews at the time, and he's like, you know, I picked Michael Keaton because you believe that he's crazy, and he was crazy enough to do this kind of thing, in a sense. Like, not so much the, you know, just that he's somebody who could do it. It's not about the physical aspect with Keaton, and that's why he also had a putty, you know, costume, which I didn't have so much of a problem. You got this guy in a fucking tank armor shit, which
Yeah.
I've never been a fan of that look for Batman. I get it. That's coming from certain, like, I think they did it in the Arkham game. He kind of had a costume like that. And,
Yep.
it's fine, but I'm not a fan of that. I just ain't. I barely like the costume that was in Dark Knight series. I tolerated it more or less just because it makes sense because of how grounded that movie was. But again, going back to that, that's kind of what I feel like we're getting here. It's just more of the same there. And it's like, we already got it. Why do I need that? Give me something different. You know, there's tons of areas for Batman you could explore. You know what I've never seen that I would love to see? I want to see a 1940s noir style Batman where he's just doing old school detective work and taking down gangsters, and you know, something set in like the 1940s where you could get really cool with all the characters and colorful. You know what I mean? Not quite as like played up as the 60s series, a little bit more subdued, but you know, something that's not the same fucking retreaded Batman shit we've gotten for the last 20 years, because it really isn't that much removed from the last thing we get, right?
Yeah,
It
I totally get what you're saying here. If I mean, 40s style-ish, like you can make. I think the best thing mode to do with like superheroes, especially on DC's side of thing, is to not make it feel like it's contemporary times, like it's some sort of hybrid between modern day and your classic roaring 20s type of and post World War II era world where it's wholly
more of a
unique to
Dick
itself.
Tracy. I know you're making fun and poking fun, but no, I'm serious.
Yeah,
Because it's too. These are comic book characters. And yeah, you're not wrong with Batman Forever to a point, but that's still grounded in the Tim Burton universe in the same way. Like, it's still all modernized stuff. And I'm not saying you have to do that, but I'm just saying do something different. Do a 1970s gritty, Dirty Harry style Batman.
there
I
you
don't
go.
care.
Yeah,
Something different.
blaxploitation Batman.
There you go. Patty knows what I'm talking about. Like the 90s cartoon done as a film.
Well,
Exactly.
yeah, that would be one that hybrids the 1940s with the 90s of that time. Like you had computers, but you had like TVs that were black and white and had old case models. You had old classic cars. The fashion was like a retro, but you had a little bit of throwing in here and there of some modern technology.
And you can add in a lot of the James Bondish elements with Batman's, gadgets and stuff.
Just to compare with the movie, think Sky Captain: The World of Tomorrow, because that
Yes,
was a
that kind of a
live
thing,
action
yeah.
movie that was inspired by the original Max Fleischer's Superman shorts, and they were
Yep.
also what inspired Batman the Animated Series, which was kind of a hybrid of those with a little bit of Burton's Batman. And then something wonderful happened. I would be all over a Batman set in something that looked like the animated series,
Exactly, yeah.
like a version of Sky Captain, something that took like that
Yeah.
animation, and I'll also do Superman that. I mean, do like a DC universe.
Oh, I would love to see
You
a
could.
Golden Age type Superman type thing.
Exactly,
Like,
with the
yes.
original suit, like the Max Fleischer suit. I mean, that's the movie that I want to see. Whereas this thing here, yeah, I get that they were probably trying to go for different, but I don't think that they went for different enough, because they're like, okay, because you saw like what Christopher Nolan did, let's do what he did, only in the image of these movies, but still fundamentally what he did.
Exactly. I think, like I said before, like if you make the time ambiguous, where you can see certain modern aspects of today, but you see this big foundation of something of like where these comic book characters were written, like where we're introduced, that type of decade, and you find a nice sweet balance like the animated series did, and throw in little parts of various other genre films, like stylistically for the aesthetic. I think you can create something more interesting, because one of the things that you actually have to be careful of when you're telling, essentially modern mythical characters, is to date your film with modern contemporary aspects. Like Batman Begins has a lot of dated stuff in it. Same with The Dark Knight and so forth, and same with Batman v Superman and Man of Steel. Like it's all very much of the time it was made, but really you should be telling these stories in a way that you could say, oh, maybe was this filmed like in the last 3 years? Was it filmed 10 years ago? Was it like you want that question in the air, because you want the story to be able to stand outside of the confines of the time it was made. And I don't think we've been getting Batman like that for a very, very long time.
And I'm not totally in disagreement with Austin Woods here. Like, I think it is time to let Batman set for a while.
Yes.
Like, they are over reliant on Batman at Warner Brothers. And I mean, that might even help us transition to another topic, but I do know we have some super chats to get to, but There's been a lot of movement over at WB, including CNN's head stepping down. I've been hearing about some shuffling behind the scenes. We already know one of the moves that Zaslav has kind of made already. We brought up Monday. Right off the bat, one of the first things that's being talked about Monday morning after the weekend he takes control is Joker 2, and I'm not fucking surprised one bit, because I'm sure he looked at it all and he goes, look, we've got one movie here that's actually made money, so why are we not making a sequel to that now? Right? Like, I guarantee you that was a Zaslav call. And I have a feeling we're going to start seeing a lot more movement going ahead. What do you guys think about that whole business? Do you think we're going to see a lot more heads rolling in the next week? I'm sure I know the answer, but hey.
I'm not sure
I
about
hope so.
heads rolling. I hope so, but I think here's what I suspect. I think Zaslav is going to push the Joker sequel, and I think however that performs, that's going to dictate how he decides to pursue the direction. So I'm really, really hoping that he understands that the Joker, it was good because it had a great team behind it and it had a very modest budget for comparison. If he realizes that's where you get your success from with these types of properties, and he goes in that direction, that will benefit not just the company, but I think it'll really do benefit for the audience as well. If he decides to, follow the suit of larger budgets and, kind of just repeating the same things that have happened before, because there is a fan base for that, but it's definitely not the numbers that Warner Brothers right now has, and it's not the numbers that has allowed Warner Brothers to be able to not avoid things such as mergers and a restructuring of its company. Then yeah, it's going to be bad news. But I think it's going to take a little bit longer than we expect before we see a significant change at Warner Brothers. But we are probably going to see a couple of quicker things happen happen with regards to who's at the top right now.
Well, and they already are talking about how they're spinning off the company. So like all this stuff is happening pretty quickly. But go ahead, Andre. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was about to say another thing that I hope that he pays attention to, in addition to the Joker, is what's the biggest thing they have right now? It's Peacemaker.
Yeah.
And the way that they made that is actually the Joker recipe.
Well, not only
Ignore
that,
because ignore the Suicide Squad. That movie introduced Peacemaker and everything else, but that was a hugely expensive, big budget movie. Whereas I don't know the budget for Peacemaker, but it's very limited sets. It's mostly a character-driven piece, and it's awesome because of the characters and their interaction. I mean, Zaslav, he has to pay attention to that. He has like one historic success story in the Joker, and you have another contemporary success story in Peacemaker. And although they tonally couldn't be more different, they have fundamentally both taken the same path, which is low on budget, high on character and interaction. I see this. Many others see this. So surely Zaslav must see that as well.
I hope so, yeah. Because that's what these types of characters are. I mean, they started in a long-form medium to begin with, comic books, adventures every month. Over and over. They can be serviced for a film, and we've seen successes of that. But I think these types of characters, you get more lucrative results when you kind of have this new medium that reflects their original, and that would be serialized stories on something like an HBO Max or television.
Well, there's another side to this too. While the Peacemaker was something that was already happening pretty much before Zaslav came into the picture, and I'm not even going to say that he wouldn't have anything against that, but I'm not saying he won't notice the success. But I think this is what he's doing. He's taking something like the Joker, which is not connected to anything, right? He's like, let's concentrate on that. And while they're working on that, he has the time now to go through everything that's there. Because we know, like, Aquaman 2 is almost done or is done. Wonder Woman 3 is coming up next in the pipeline. Flash has been nothing but a disaster since day one. That they've been shooting this movie now for like 2 years. Batgirl started already. So like he's gonna have to reevaluate all these things that are happening right now, I'm sure. And what Joker will do is also kind of help take away any of the sting that any of those projects I just mentioned, if they happen to fall flat on their face. If the movie is good, let's say.
Absolutely.
And plus, even if it doesn't, because worst case scenario, let's say the movie sucks. and it only makes half the amount the first movie did, if they don't spend more than 10 more million on it than they did the first movie, or maybe 20 at the most, it's still going to be so far into the profit, it's not going to matter. It's going to be like, it's basically like when Friday, you know, like Paramount used to do Friday the 13th every year to pay for everything else, basically. You know, it's going to make them money regardless. So I see that as a no-brainer, and I'm curious to see how he's going to retool everything going forward. But I'm sure DC is something that's very high on his list to deal with.
I would be surprised if it wasn't, because considering the potential in that, I mean, honestly, the MCU is the biggest entertainment brand on the planet in its history, and it has been for a decade. And the only ones that have something that can compete with that is actually the Warner Media and DC, and they have botched it completely. That should be his first
I agree.
mission. Like everything that the MCU does, DC could have done, and he needs to figure out why the hell has this not been working.
Well, I think for starters, there's not a proper DC Studios subsidiary. That's the other part too. They just have their DC's Films brand, which is this kind of like this floating entity around that is just stamped onto these movies. Like, they don't have a proper studio system, and I think or an infrastructure too. And I think that's one thing Zaslav's going to have to do. It might be something difficult for him to do, and not in the sense that he can't do it, in the sense that does he want to invest in that way? Right. Because that's a big undertaking, because he already has one person in, eventually, that once Zaslav takes over, he already has one person who understands that model quite well, and that's James Gunn.
And we've been seeing James kind of leaning more into it there.
James has got some deals with Warner Brothers right now that I think are going to be carried over with the change of the regime.
I think you're right. I think you're onto something there, Script. And I'm not saying that James is going to take over the DC universe, but I don't think you're wrong that Zaslav is not taking all these things into consideration, and he's really paying attention.
Yeah. My suspicion is that James Gunn might be put in the Jon Favreau role that Favreau was when Marvel Studios was being created.
I agree.
And I think that'd be a very smart move. I think that'd be a very smart move. Just get a couple of business-minded people to oversee the numbers, and get a couple of creatives to help with the direction. Let James Gunn do his own thing elsewhere, because I don't think he'll stick with DC on the intimate level he did with Marvel at that time. And just find a couple, maybe one, or if you're lucky enough to find one or two people that have a very clear direction of where to take this property, and to commit to that for over the long term by focusing on each individual film one at a time, and each individual series one at a time, to make it the best it can be, to actually challenge the first place position of the MCU.
Well, and to go back to your whole idea of the studio, I agree with you. That's the one way to help fix this. But historically, that's something Warner hasn't done, right? They do the opposite. They soak things up, and then like New Line is a great example. They took what was a very strong indie major studio and just soaked it up into Warner Brothers, and now it's nothing more than a label. And I agree with you. Like, if Zaslav is smart, even though it's the opposite of what Warner has done in the past 20 years, it's exactly what he has to do to undo all the fuckery that has been done to that company.
I would say, though, that shouldn't be his first priority.
Not New Line, but DC should be. I mean, I'm saying, like, that should be first thing, is you got to go through. That's the biggest problem that Warner has, is there's too many different departments doing too many different things. Like Script was saying before, like, you don't have anybody, like, the hand never knows what the left hand never knows what the right hand's doing at that company. And you have too many people who don't sync up. And that is a prime example is when I bring up the Batman animated series. It took us how long to get that on Blu-ray, just because of 2 or 3 departments who couldn't fucking work together underneath the same umbrella. And then when they did release it, it was the hugest snafu ever, because they decided to do it as a Warner archive, and the fucker sold out in like 3 hours or whatever it was.
Oh yeah, I got that. Mine came with a pop.
Well, they ended up releasing it officially. So like, it did come out in mass quantities. But at that point, they were like, "Oh shit, we misunderstood this." I was like, "Yeah, you did, you dumb shits."
I would have loved to been like a fly on the wall when that happened, as they realized, holy shit, people actually want this. What have we?
Oh, it's funny. I
if-
got a play-by-play from one of my guys behind the scenes on that whole
Oh, do
fucking
share.
thing. Well, kind of basically is what happened is, okay, for years what we had was, they released the DVD set, what, almost 20 fucking years ago now?
Yeah,
Early
that
all that was-
2004 or
Yeah, all that
something.
was just the VHS or the Umatic tape or whatever masters they had, or beta masters, whatever the fuck they were masters, they just threw on the DVDs. So they are some of the shittiest looking DVDs you've ever seen. But they are so sought after that they have very good bootlegs of those out there. In fact, I'm an owner of one of those bootlegs, right? Because they became so sought after because they were out of print for so long that people were bootlegging it. And people were telling people because here's the thing. You have DC people, you have television people, then you have kids television people, and all this other stuff. So you have all these different departments. So the DC people are like, we need Batman the Animated Series out on video. People want it. So then the TV people would tell the kids department they want Batman Animated Series out because that's their domain. And they would say, well, we just don't see the demand for it. So for 5 fucking years or longer, that's what they went through. They're like, we want to remaster this. We want to go back to the original film. We just don't see the money in it, is what they kept saying. And they're like, no, you don't understand. You don't like it back and forth for years. Finally, they broke down. They're like, okay, we'll do it. They spent the money, went back, remastered this fucking thing. And the first thing they did is put it up on the Warner Archive, which is like the limited amount of run they will do for a movie because they feel like there is no demand for it. So you had everybody over at DC going, what the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? Everybody's good. It sure as shit. The moment they put it up for pre-order, they sold all the copies they had because they only have a set amount with the DC, the Warner Archive. So it was like 3,000 copies or whatever they were going to make. Gone instantly. They're like, oh, fuck. So then they had to recalibrate the whole thing to pull a full launch, like what Script said, and they pushed it back like, I think 90 days, I think it was, so they could actually do that. Yeah, it was a whole fucking fiasco because 3 fucking departments couldn't talk to each other and couldn't agree with each other and listen to each other. And the whole time, then they just were proven right on the other end that, yeah, people want this fucking thing. Duh. So then what have we seen in the last few years? We've gotten Batman Beyond. We've got Superman now. All these shows are getting remastered. Why? Because they finally are seeing that, oh shit, people want these classic shows.
And the funny
Yeah, I
thing
think
is
Justice League and Justice League Unlimited are the next big ones,
Yeah.
aren't they?
I think those might have already had Blu-ray releases, but they're probably going to get re-released.
I think they had the volume version of the Blu-ray release. They haven't had like the proper complete series yet. As far as
right.
I
I'm
know.
sure that's on the horizon. Like they've even gone back to the Hanna-Barbera cartoons now. So yeah, like, so you know, it was just long years and years of just like, why can't you guys just get together and fucking work on this thing? That's Warner Brothers in a nutshell. You have 10,000 fucking departments and nobody knows what the other one's doing. Nobody will listen to each other. They're spending money like crazy on stupid shit because they know AT&T was going to come in and clean up the bill. And now everybody's panicking because they know Zaslav's going to come in and clean house. That's what I've been hearing.
And they're panicking for good reason. And like, I don't actively want anyone to lose their jobs and their abilities to support their families and all of that. Like, but at the same time, in this company, you have so many people who simply can't hack what their jobs should be. They're not in it for the money. They are too incompetent, and they're holding the company and shareholder value back. And in that circumstance, those employees simply has to go.
Yeah, and it's just ignorance, right? It's not like clearly there was money to be made. And this is the constant thing that goes right into this whole thing with DC not having a fucking studio to control everything that's DC related. They have everything separated, whether it's DC, whether it's Looney Tunes, it doesn't fucking matter. If it's kids, it's under the kids department, under TV. So it's under 2 or 3 different departments that are underneath each other.
It's micromanaged. Yeah.
It's all micromanaged to fuck. Thank you, Script. And then on top of it all, if you just, the other problem is they got rid of their home video department.
Yeah.
That was the other snafu, is because now you have nobody to kind of just. They have the one guy they brought back that they fired last year, but he is, from what I've been hearing from people, including I think Robert Meyer Burnett said something about this. I can't remember the guy's name. It's David something, I think. So I apologize for forgetting, but I'm horrible with names. But anyway, this guy who's been like the head of their home video department, they ended up firing last year. They brought him back at a very, deducted salary. And he's like the only person now who's in charge of this shit. But he's like the only one protecting the home video department right now, but he's working with nothing. Right. So like they pretty much minimalized all these departments down to, they threw all that stuff over to advertising and stuff. They shut down their Warner Brothers facility. They were the only ones that still had a US facility that was doing their own home video, and they shut it down. They were actually doing the stuff for, like, I think Universal and Fox and a few other places too before Fox was bought out by Disney. Right? Like, they were one of the few houses still doing it, and they shut it all down just before COVID.
Good timing.
Well, it's because it was to correspond with HBO Max. But they jumped the gun. That's the other thing I heard, is people are like, well, we kind of jumped the gun on that. Because they were going to shut down the Warner Archive, but then they just moved it over to Amazon. But anyway, on the whole thing with Matt Reeves, Mecha J says, based on Mikey's description, Matt Reeves' Batman sounds like Oscar bait. Well, I see where you're going with that. I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I understand that perspective very well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where the pretentious shit is coming from.
Yeah. Well, of course, that could also be a director who's just a little bit high on himself.
Well, and that's where I feel like the smell of Oscar bait all the time. And I really got that from Tenet, and that's why the stank of it just kind of drove me off the movie. Like,
That was a pretentious movie.
I can deal with Nolan's pretentiousness, but I only got, like, I think 30 minutes into Tenet, and it wasn't because I didn't understand what was going on. I completely understood what was going on, but I just kept asking myself, why should I care about these characters? Like, the time I checked out is when this lady was talking about her marriage and shit, and I'm just like, all right, fuck this noise. This movie just pissed me off. I don't care. Kind of thing. Like, I'm done. And because it was so pretentious, and it's just like, I don't understand what you're trying to do here. And it's just nauseatingly stupid at this point. You're trying to be overly what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, it's taking very interesting ideas and not understanding or playing out.
There's a word I'm looking for.
Potential of them.
No, yeah, you're on the right path of what I'm trying to say, but there's a specific word I'm trying to figure out that I can't think of. But anyway, Omar see, now I can't even talk. Omar Bagawi, I know how to say it if my mouth would work, sends in €5. A 3-hour Batman movie needs to take some lessons from Bollywood. Have an intermission and insert some musical scenes. You know what? I would take that over this shit right now, Omar. At least
like a halftime show.
Fuck. At least it would be more entertaining than just dour, dark shit constantly. And I get it. Batman plays well to the dark, dour stuff. But does every single Batman movie have to be dark and dour? I'm not saying we have to get to the point of Batman and Robin. Don't get me wrong. I know these things can go the other direction.
Well, I think you have to understand that dark and dour is not necessarily mean low lighting and gruesome grit. It's actually just situations and the approach to them. And like, there's such thing as a dark comedy where it doesn't make you feel depressed, but you're like, that's some dark subject matter.
Speaking of James Gunn, he's somebody who's really good at balancing dark humor for the most part, I would say. So yeah, that's a great analogy there with the dark humor. No, you're totally right. And no, I still wouldn't be against it at this point. Fuck it. Let's see if Patton can sing.
Get Lenny Kravitz to do the musical number in the middle.
Right? Are you gonna go my way? Got to know. That song does have a killer drum track and a killer guitar, though. It does. Say what you will. All right. Anyway, thank you for that, Omar, and sorry for butchering your name there. And on that note, let's get back into what you guys are saying. Let's go back to the top here. Meredith G says 50% of Neil Young's music rights are owned by a corporation, Warner Brothers, in fact. Do you think that he would?
No, another corporation.
Or was it another one? I thought it was Warner.
No, there's a parent company above that owns half of his. That also own certain other things that are being pushed around on people right now.
Are you talking about starts with a B in the first word and an R in the second word?
Nope.
Okay, different company. All right.
A different company.
I just didn't know if I should say it out loud.
Yeah. No. Just. I mean. Oh wait. Well, yeah. I guess B&R is one of them, but like they own another company that actually owns.
I get you.
50% of Neil Young's.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yes, exactly.
But okay, so 50% of Neil Young's music rights are owned by a corporation. Do you think he has the one who made that decision to? You think he was the one who made the decision to pull his music? That's a very good question, Meredith. And I don't want to get deep into the weeds on this stuff, unfortunately, because we get into stuff that Mama YouTube monster doesn't like. But let's just say I don't think he's. Well, I
don't think he's rocking in the free world. Let's put that way.
No, well, let's put it to you this way. He definitely had some influence.
I will say with a 99% certainty, he signed on to an influencer contract for a third party with a vested interest.
Yeah,
that's probably the easiest way of putting it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. Yes.
And then Sean Carter on that note says, opening an unofficial petition for a Tom ranting emoji. I'm all for this. I think we need a Congo or emoji as well. So that's just me. That was a newer one. Thank you for that. And then going back to the class.
There's a way.
We have Darius Munchausen with a super sticker. I know it's got to be popcorn. Thank you for that, Darius. He never lets us down, and I love me some popcorn, even though Andre won't put butter on it. JCM sends in $5 Canadian, says, I work in the Arctic, and it's often visibly clear who is coming for work or running from something. Oh, was this about Boba Fett? I'm sorry if I missed this earlier, but I imagine it has something to do with like the desert setting, I imagine. Is that what he's talking about?
Well, it's basically like who commutes to harsh conditions and for why. Yes, he's very correct on that. Yes, I know some people that work up in the very far north, and they're usually there for a very specific reason, and they say, there's some strange people that come passing through.
Oh, okay, I got you now. All right. Yeah, I wasn't sure which the conversation was because that was an older super chat. Sorry about that, JCM. I wish I'd have got to that when it was more poignant. I've been trying to do that today, so hopefully you guys think I've been keeping up pretty well. Bama Grad says, hail to all. Has anyone heard of the upcoming Canadian reimagining of Robin Hood becoming a heroic woman of color, Robin Hood?
Yes, I have. It's on the global network in Canada is co-producing it. I think it's a U.S. company that's actually doing the major financing.
Go figure.
But correct me if I'm wrong on that in the chat. But yes, it's basically it is the most derivative take you can have on the character, making Robin. Her name is Robin Loxley, and she is in a band, I believe, and it steals from the rich to give from the poor. It's not even.
So this is a contemporary take.
A very contemporary take, and not even a creative one. It's basically what you would get up. Literally, you'd get a high school kid in writer's craft, like an adjacent English course, to come up with, and then the writer would have to be like, "Yeah, this is terrible." Like the teacher would actually fail that person.
She's stealing poutine from the rich and giving it to the poor.
That would be more creative than what the actual pitch is. Exactly.
I remember hearing something about this a while ago. So this is actually on now, or is it?
I think it's got its cast, and I don't know if it has its release date.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I don't want to shit on it because I haven't seen it. So, but.
There will be plenty of opportunity to shit on it.
Well, here's my problem with that. I'm not
good.
against like modern takes on things like this because Robin Hood's had been told a million fucking times, a million fucking ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like that doesn't bother. To me, those kind of stories are about like Christmas Carol or Treasure Island, right? We've had so many versions of them that. Frankly, I'm not like totally against them trying something different, even if they fall flat on their face. But if that is the case, they're just trying something different. The problem we have here, mind you, is the same problem we run into with all these things. And that is the agenda behind it. That's the problem I see. going forward. I mean, even like a lot of these Zorro remakes and reboots or whatever you want to call them. I wouldn't call them reboots. They're like readaptations, whatever. Even the problem with a lot of these Zorro things is, yeah, normally I would have no problem with a new spin on it, but we're in an age now where that new spin includes some kind of fucking agenda.
Yeah, and I think what's kind of ironic, especially for some of the people that I deal with on the independent film side, not so much in the Hollywood because they don't even care about Robin Hood, but on the independent film side, they don't understand that Robin Hood as a character, he's not necessarily stealing from the rich, he's stealing from the government, which is stealing from the people and returning that money back to them, because that's what King John was doing. He was overtaxing his subjects and pretty much making them live off scraps, and Robin Hood, coming back from the Crusades, found that to be ethically wrong and challenged that authority and that behavior, and that is the story. It's actually about government overreach, so to speak, in that time.
This is actually a really good point. I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, it's true. He doesn't steal from the rich.
Yeah, no.
He takes back for the people
Exactly
what's rightfully theirs.
Because even in the Disney
there were
version,
barons and whatnot. There were barons and other knights and so that landowners at that time that weren't doing the things that King John was doing. In fact, they were being exploited by King John because the people that they were in charge over as landowners were being robbed essentially or executed if they resisted. And yeah, that's the whole thing. Robin of Locksley lost his land when he lost his land when he returned from the Crusades because he was pronounced dead. And he's like, well, even the people that lived on my land that farmed and paid moderate rent, so to speak, to him, were now paying 4 or 5 times that, and then losing half of what they farmed, and it was all going to King John. and yeah, like that. And he's like, that's not how this should work. So yeah, just throwing that out there. That's
even the Disney
take.
version kind of touched on that in a way. Like, I mean, it didn't completely ignore it. So no, that's always been a part of the story. And it's kind of been simplified with the whole steals from the rich and gives to the poor thing. It's more like he's basically taking back what rightfully belonged to the poor.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's not oversimplified. It's blatantly wrong, is what it is.
That's true. Yeah. I was aware of it, but again,
Prince John. Sorry, not King John. Prince John.
Yeah, Prince John. Yeah. Then Yanni Evinan says Nirvana Bruce Wayne makes Pattinson look like a guy who got arrested for exposing himself at the zoo.
This is not.
Did I just say Evian too? I meant Evinan. Sorry.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
But no, yeah, Pattinson does give off a creepy vibe, not like a dark, scary, brooding, and more creepy. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but yeah.
I just hope that there's some reference to him looking awkwardly at the shotgun, since he's like,
well, there's the thing with guns and Batman, so
I mean, they don't have to go all the way, but they should set it up a little bit. Like he looks at maybe that's like the reason for his anti-gun stance. He doesn't want to have a gun too close because he might be tempted.
If there's 10 scenes though where he contemplates self-deletion, though, I think that's going to be a little too on the nose.
No, I don't say 10. 1 or 2 will do.
This thing's 3 hours long, though, man. I mean,
I'll settle for 1 or 2. I'll give the movie a higher mark if they're like, okay, if you're going to be inspired by Kurt Cobain, at least go all the way, do it right.
Come as you are, my friend. Come as you are. Thank you for that, Yanni. Martino Solimano sends in 20 Swiss francs. Says, hello, gentlemen. Looking forward for the offer episode about the prop master searching for the horse. Yeah, that'll be a fun episode.
You know what? If they do end up saying they're searching for it and not just trying to fabricate it, then we're into some really funny territory there.
Yeah, it's clearly a fake horse. Oh, we'll see. It'll be interesting. I think this is going to go more to do, because this is from the producer. I forgot his first name, but Rudy's his last name. Who Miles Teller is playing, and I'm assuming a lot more from Robert Evans and his point of view. than anything, it looks like. So, and anybody who's seen The Kid Stays in the Picture, knows what I'm talking about when it comes to that. I think you'll check that documentary out. You'll probably get a little bit of an idea of what we're going to see in this show.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea too.
That's a great documentary. In fact, before watching like the Godfather trilogy before the show, we should probably take a look at that. Get that fresh in your mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Albert S. Rudy. Thank you, Brian. Yes. But yeah, that's my recommendation for that. I do recommend anybody check that. And it actually just got released on Blu-ray not too long ago, I think by Kino. So it is out there and available. So then Yanni sends in a second one and says, second super chat effort, grunge look on Patterson looks like a guy who got caught exposing himself at the zoo. Yeah, we got the first one there. Sorry about that, Yanni. I was trying to keep the super chats within the topics. So that's probably why it got shuffled in there. Sorry about that, buddy. I didn't want you to have to send in another one for that. I didn't see you asking about it. Sorry about that. But no, yeah, he definitely does. That was funny. But we appreciate the support, my friend. And then we got Ram Bam here who says, isn't making a Joker sequel missing the anti-core point of the original? You're not wrong. But if they do it right, it can still be good. Right? I don't want to say never, right? I don't know about you guys on that, but
yeah, I mean, it depends what type of angle are they going to take for a follow-up to a Joker sequel. I mean, because the first angle they took was basically a Martin Scorsese approach. So I'm curious what the second one would be. That was one of the few scripts that actually leaked out of Warner Brothers because they had so little confidence in it at the time. Because I got that a good year and a half before it even came out. And I was really impressed with the script. I was like, holy crap, they did something interesting here.
I mean, yeah, even though it hit close to a couple things I didn't want it to, like insinuating the Joker had some role to play in the death of, Bruce Wayne's parents and a couple other things. I was actually pleasantly surprised, and that was a movie I ate a lot of crow on because I was not looking forward to it. I didn't think the trailers were selling me anything good, and that could, speaking to the whole Batman thing, I could be completely wrong about this Pattinson Batman. And I would be more than willing to admit it if I go and see it, and it's like,
same
oh my
with
god,
me. Like,
3-hour masterpiece.
But if it works, it works, and we'll be happy to admit it. I
Absolutely.
mean, nothing would be better, to be honest.
Absolutely. As I constantly say, I never go into anything wanting to be disappointed or expecting to hate it. At least I try not to.
I did that one time, like Ghostbusters 2016.
Well, even then, I still tried to give that movie a chance, right? Like I would rather walk out of something feeling like it entertained me and surprised me than feeling like I wasted my money and time on something that either I didn't like or made me feel like shit. That's the thing with me. That's why I hate it when people say, oh, you guys are just doing shit for clickbait hate and all that shit like that and whatever. It's like, no, honestly, I would rather come out here and tell you I was wrong about any of the misconceptions I had from the trailer going in or that, and the other. I loved it because I would rather spend my time doing that. I don't have a lot of time. So the last thing I want to do is waste my fucking time with something I don't like to watch or I'm not going to enjoy. So when I do take my time out to watch something like this, the best thing it can do is prove me wrong and entertain me. And this is correct, Six. I am an equal opportunity hater. And with that, I think we're caught up on the super chats, unless I missed any. That was my method to my madness, is I was going to keep us on task.
Well, you did awesome.
Yeah.
All right, we got another one from Yanni, though. He says, funny that Affleck's script that Reeves didn't like sounded pretty damn good. Bond feeling DCEU references, etc. Instead, we got Nolan Fincher fap. We did talk a little bit about this the other day, but yeah, Andre, did you read up about what Affleck's script was originally supposed to be?
I don't. Yeah, I know some things. I know some things. I don't know too much in detail. But from what I gather is that, of course, it was going to star Deadshot as not star, but feature Deadshot as the villain. It would be extremely integrated into the rest of the DCEU, and this was Matt Reeves' major sticking point. He wanted to do what Nolan did, do a complete reset in its own universe. I mean, if Nolan got to do that, why shouldn't he? Why should he have to play in Ben Affleck's sandbox and use his sloppy seconds, basically? That's kind of like what he was saying. Although it what Ben Affleck was doing sounded pretty awesome. And what I've heard before is that there was going to be like some Arkham Knights or Arkham Asylum inspiration to it all. That's what I heard of what Ben Affleck was doing, and honestly, I take that over like this Fincher Nolan wannabe thing.
Yeah, I heard a story. It was kind of like an Arkham Asylum meets The Raid, with Deathstroke kind of facilitating.
That sounds like the best Batman movie ever.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like an intensive one, like, a survival Batman, which I think would be pretty cool because we haven't really seen anything like that.
Yeah, no, it sounds amazing to me. I'd watch that in a heartbeat. Whereas this, I can't help but feel I've seen this before.
Yeah, I'm getting.
That goes back to my
things I've
rant.
seen
Yeah.
before in this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Like, the other part too is they've given us 3 trailers and then 1 actual scene from the film, and not a single one has proposed the so-called mystery of what this is about compared to like the advertising and the press releases. Because I'm just going back to like the Guy Ritchie trailers for like Sherlock. You at least figured out there's a mystery, there's a murder, something's going on. Who did it? What's going on? Why is someone trying to discredit Sherlock Holmes? Like, that was in the advertisement. That's what got people to actually see that film. We're not getting anything anywhere close to that with this stuff here. It's just, it's Batman and he's beating up criminals. It's like, no, we've seen that in 7 previous films.
Exactly. So, yeah, like I remain unconvinced. It's the best I have to say about it.
Yeah.
And with that, I think, unless there was anything else you gentlemen wanted to talk about today, we've hit just about everything we could. And I got a laugh to send us out on tonight.
Nice. Sounds good. On this
looks like we got a new Orville poster.
Ah. Yeah, there you have a real trek on a strange new world.
I don't know 100% if that's a real poster or not, but I hope it is. I really do, because let's just say I've heard through the grapevine that this new Orville season is going to really amp up some of the jabs at Star Trek. And yes, a lot of those things that we thought were jabs at the Star Trek before were jabs at Star Trek. So for what that's worth, take it as you will.
Yeah, like piss off Seth MacFarlane and deny him Star Trek at your own risk. The irony is, if only they had given him Star Trek when he asked for it.
Indeedy do. But thank you for that, Robert Meyer Burnett, for sharing that this morning. That was quite the laugh. I thought that was funny. So yeah, but I've heard some really good news about Orville. Like, even though people are like worried about this season being last, I've heard something like it may be a last season, but that doesn't mean Orville's done. I've heard there's a future in like specials and movies and stuff they're talking about too, even if it doesn't get any more seasons after this. So don't think that the Orville is like going away anytime soon, from what I've heard.
That's promising.
So yeah, and Gary's been talking about it too. I know that. So I'm Nerdrotic about he knows a few things too. Yep. So with that, I think we're gonna wrap this up, kids. Check out Script Doctor's channel. Check out the Salty Nerd Podcast, our friends over there who've been helping out all week trying to promote their channel, because MattVader is going to get a tattoo on his butt of the logo if they get 10,000 subscribers by the 4th of July, I think it was.
Yep.
So
and then his wife is going to be so angry at him, and we have to make that happen.
Again, like she's going to be looking at that all the time, anyways, right?
Well, I mean, if anybody is,
she'll probably see it the most, yeah.
So, well, you know. But with that,
I don't know what Matt's kinks are. So,
as Matthew W. says, it's time for those little cute koalas in the rain. Thank you, kids. Take care of yourself and each other.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain. No fucks given, koalas in the rain.